all of them as well. What a move from the 48. Oh, look at this. And onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Last week was the opening round of the World GT Championship. It had everything. Thrills, spills, inverted grids, and I mean inverted, I mean everybody. And at Fuji, we end up with 2 different winners and already a start to a tight points championship. Now we head to the land down under, where the thrills are going to be even better as we do the international circuit here at the Shell V-powered Bend Motorsports Park in Australia. And you watch it all here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeremy Scott. Nathan Richards joins me in the commentary booth. And Nathan, we saw, especially at the end, we saw a little bit of wet weather, but the Bend, I think, is going to be an interesting crux into everybody's plans, as it's a newer racetrack on the service.
Yeah, it's a brand new track to our race, and I think the newest, if not one of the newest. And after watching a few hot laps earlier on YouTube, it's not an easy track to get used to. There's lots of mid and high speed corners where you've just got to be able to hope to carry the car through. And with these GT3s, we know that they can understeer quite a lot, so it's definitely going to be a task for our drivers tonight. And battling side by side, it's, there's lots of possibilities because there's lots of different braking zones, lots of corners where you can nudge your wheel up the inside. But with how thin parts of the track are, it does make it a bit of a challenge. So drivers are definitely going to have to be wary when looking to make some overtakes.
And we saw some drivers who had some questionable overtakes last week at Fuji. And take a look at the schedule. This is our first technical race of the season. Again, Shell V-Power Motorsport at the Bend. Next week we'll be at Silverstone, which will be another feature, twin 45-minute races. So a mix of technical and feature. We go to our first endurance race at beautiful Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, September 22nd. But a lot of great tracks up and down the schedule. This is going to be interesting. I think, what we saw last week isn't necessarily what we're going to see this week, especially with the technical format.
No, it's going to be different, isn't it? Of course, in this one, we have a completely different format of racing. So we start off with a 30-minute race after, of course, our qualifying has concluded. And then, like last time, we do have our reverse grid wheel, but again, between 15 and 25, and then full. So we could have a full reverse grid, or just places from 15th up to 25th. And then we have a 10-minute warm-up, get the drivers to, get into their cars, get everything sorted, have a break. And then we have a 60-minute race, which is going to be very interesting because it means pit stops are certainly going to happen. They're going to have lots of action, and you never know, maybe an upset with some weather.
Well, let's take a look at the pro standings real quick. Alexander Davidson is on top, tied with James Boomey. Both of those drivers had fantastic races last week. We'll see what they can do. And I know I was watching a little bit of practice, and Boomey was back up at the top. And I kind of get a preview of the grid. Anders Meyer, Marley Jaffa, and Ross McFarlane, your top 5. WSR Esports basically sandwiching that top 5 of the pro standings. As we take a look at our Pro-Am standings, well, no surprise here on who's on top. Michael Gray, who had a fantastic weekend in the Full Tilt Motorsport. He is your points leader, followed by Alistair Kirk, William Guthrie, another Full Tilt V Motorsport driver, Jack Osborne, and Eric Mushka rounds out your top 5 there. In the AM standings, well, it's a little different there. Ben Altria, who was the class of the field last week, leading over Frank Sikorsky, Ben Gregory, Daniel McCauley, and Brian Loynes. And Nathan, you see a bunch of teams, but we notice up near the front of the driver standings translates into the point standings for the teams.
Indeed. Let's have a look at how the teams are looking in the pro category. So, WSR with a nice lead, but only 20 points between themselves and Effect Simulations. And then it's around 70 points back to Altitude Freem Esports in P3, ahead of the Altitude Esports by SimStickers team. They're only 20 points behind in 4th place. Racing Glam Esports in the top 5, ahead of Atomic Esports in 6th. Then we have Nomad in 7th, ahead of Solpec Precision Racing in 8th. And then, 100 points back, Atomic Esports DCW in 9th. And then for our AM standings, we have Full Tilt V Motorsports at the top there with 261, around 15 points ahead of the Full Tilt Motorsports in 2nd place. A great start for Full Tilt as a whole. And then in 3rd, it's Effect Simulations Club Sports on 221, around 50 points ahead of Series 1 Racing, who sit on 174 in 4th. And then it's Altitude Freem Esports Mr. Hedge, who round off the top 5 with Boosted Motorsports and Project 91 Academy team, the full 7.
Let's roll off on your grid as they are starting to grid up. Alexander Davidson and James Boomy. No surprise, they were tops last week. They're tops this week. That's Marley Joffa and Martin Toth in row 2. Row 3, Anders Meyer and Ross McFarlane. You go back to row 4, and you see Dennis Grabowski and Michael Davka, Nathan, Tommy Fadal, your fastest in Pro-Am, alongside Harrison Crowther in the 10th spot.
Indeed, and then in 11th place will be Joe Petrick alongside Robin Gurram. And then in 13th place is second in the Pro-Am category. It's Eric Mutzka alongside William Guthrie in 14th, third in the Pro-Ams, ahead of Michael Gray, of course, race winner last time out in 15th, and Aidan Carter in P16, ahead of Matthias Pahonen in 17th, and Andy Archer running off row 9. And then we have Dickie Simnor and then Arthur Thurtle, the top 20.
Onto your your AM grid. Ben Altry and Daniel McCauley are alongside each other in row 11. Row 12, Brian Loynes and Jesse Payne-Wilkins. Taking a look at row 13, it's David Mendonca and Adam Watson. Next row is Adam Tompkins, Elliot Roberts. Row 15, Jocks Ava and Taylor Lane.
And next, 31st place, it's Tom Griffiths ahead of Joe Coffin. 33rd, it's Byron Crawford ahead of Benjamin Gregory. And 35th, it's Hakon Ed Lindmo ahead of Patrick Falconer. Then in P37, we have Franek Sikorsky ahead of Lee Berridge. Adam Hedgecock in 39th and Nathan Healy rounding off the top 40.
And rounding out your field, Paul Smith in the 33, Jonathan Walker the 88, another Cal-themed livery. And last but not least, Phil Samways and John Roberts rounds out your 44-car field for this half-hour race. Of course, the pace lap is underway. The Porsche pace car with the lights out. Drivers really getting into the zone. It's an 18-turn course, Nathan. What do you expect here on lap 1?
I mean, I think chaos, not just because of the cars we've got and the drivers we've got, just because it's a new track. So a lot of them haven't done much racing here before, especially not a full grid race here. So it will definitely be an interesting one for many of our drivers. Of course, some of them that might have raced here on other games or, done the odd race, they might be in a little bit of a better position. But either way, it's chaos. There's 44 drivers here in GT3 cars, many Mustangs taken to the grid this evening, so we'll have to see how they all can do. And we have in P2 a Mercedes, but Mustangs all around.
Lots of storylines all throughout the races. The drivers are working their way around turn number 14. They'll set themselves up for turn number 15. Of course, we got lots of storylines outside of this race. We had the new race notes for the next season of iRacing. Nathan and I will go through those throughout the day, but nonetheless, a very exciting start to this race weekend. We've got 2 races, we said. We've got 30-minute and an hour here shortly as everybody warming up their tires, getting ready for what is set to be a 30-minute sprint race. And I think what's going to be interesting, Nathan, is trying to fit in that pit stop in this race.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not 100% sure if they have to do a pit stop in this race, but if they do, they've got to time it right, because 30 minutes is a very short race, especially with a pit stop somewhere in the middle. But of course, our top 2 in this race, it's Davidson and Boomy, who sit level on points, 207 apiece. So no matter what, we will have somebody at least take that championship lead by a single point or more heading into race number 2 of the evening. So a lot to play for our top 2.
Howard Hassan says, I wish I was racing tonight. Well, we were glad that you're still with us on YouTube. And if you have any questions for us on the RaceSpotTV YouTube chat, pop those in. Nathan and I will address those throughout, but glad to have you back. And we'll see what happens here as the field gets underway. Against Alex Davidson, James Boomy. We saw how good Boomy was in race 1. Can he continue that streak, or will Alex Davidson make it 2 for 2 on wins? The pace car pulls off to the left. Glad to have you with us. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Green flag is out, and once again, Alex Davidson gets out front right away, cuts off James Boomy. Here comes Joffa to the outside as they're going to go through the tight 1-2-3 complex for the first time, side by side. Joffa has the outside line, but has the advantage to turn number 2. They're still going to go side by side into 3, and so far we got a spinner at the back as well.
Indeed, so a relatively clean start with a couple of cars being caught out near the back of the field, but a really nice start there from Marley Joff, who sits in P3, just still defending off from Anders Meyer. As we head down into our next braking zone shortly, and can we see a move possibly from Meyer? Is that someone into the barriers further back?
Not sure who that is. We'll get a replay here shortly. Here comes Jaffa trying to go around Boomy for that second place, but Davidson's already checked out to a 0.7 of a second lead. A little bit surprising, but then again, this is a half-hour sprint race. You want to get your positions early because you don't want to be broiled in a race because you're not sure of where you're going to qualify until the end of the race.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a very interesting next 30 minutes, especially our top 15, most of them being taken by our pro drivers. A couple of pro-ams in there as well. And of course, once we get that reverse grid later on, things could get very, very interesting. As this is Joe Petrick here in the number 97, looking to make some moves. And further back, that's going to be Dennis Grabowski.
Yeah, Grabowski in some big issues. And I think that's Altria or Payne Wilkins involved as well. Multiple cars involved as we get more incidents in this first lap. I think this is a messier first lap than we saw in race 2 at Fuji.
Yeah, indeed, and that was Ben Altria, of course, took 2 wins in the AM category last time out. A big, big shame for him in the 504. That might be his race done already, and we've only got, well, not even got to the end of lap 1, as that was wide there. I think was Joe Petrick as we continue our way on down towards turn 1. It was Robin Glerum, part of the Williams Sim Racing team here. Let's see what he can do on these next couple of laps.
And we welcome the Williams Sim Racing team to WSR this weekend as just so much to wrap our head around. I know we're going to have replays here momentarily, but now everybody kind of getting calm and figuring out their lines around this technical circuit. Again, 18 turns on this international, and that's not even the biggest layout that we have. You know, if you decide to go left at turn 9, that's where you have some problems. Oh, a little bit of a bump there for position. That's Glerum. Glerum's going to lose a little bit, and there goes one of the Mustangs. So Mustangs just having all sorts of issues here on this first lap. That's Daniel McCauley in the Series 1 Racing Mustang.
Indeed, a big shame there for McCauley, getting caught out there by a bit of contact there between himself and Glerum. As I think further ahead there was a move from, I think, Evdoka ahead of Toth for P6 here as we continue our way on. Back down towards the final part of the circuit, in towards turn number 13 we go with Evdoka, of course on the back of Ross McFarlane, as here's a replay of Patrick Falconer down at turn 1, and I think there Jeremy just got tapped by someone heading into the braking zone.
Yeah, 3-4 wide going into that tight turn 1. Not going to make anything happen. Mushka was the car that nosed it right into the barriers going around. I believe that was turn number 6. And then Grabowski with even more issues. So Grabowski not having a race that he wants to remember. That's never good. You got to hold that brake. But sometimes the momentum just carries you right back onto the racing line. But I tell you what, that was more mayhem than you usually see during rush hour in your major metropolitan area.
Certainly, and I'm surprised this was Glerum must have hit McCauley heading into the braking zone. Big shame there for Daniel McCauley. But no, I'm surprised that only 2 cars got taken out there. I thought it would have been many more, as here is Adam Watson, who had a decent start out last time, but certainly not a decent one here this evening at the Bend, as here we have a battle for 31st and 32nd. As we head down towards turn 1, we've got Adam Hedgecock there on the outside as we head into turn 1, looking to go for the up and under, but I think has had to concede and staying 32nd for now.
Yeah, I've been watching this battle between Hedgecock and Payne Wilkins as Paul Smith, our buddy at the BMW, now up to 31st overall, trying to knock out the door of 30th there. Paul didn't have a good couple of races, so we're hoping that he had some good races here in the Bend. I know that's what he was watching for. He did say the grip was at a premium. We'll see. Oh, that's a nice little move there for position. I do believe that was Samways and Mendonca going around Adam Watson for that 34 spot. So great showing there. There's our buddy Paul, as look at all those passes being made at the back. Still have Davidson leading by almost a second over Boomy, but this is where the battles of the race are right now for that 30th on back, is everybody kind of getting all tight, and Paul Smith going off circuit. So sorry, Paul, we kind of jinxed you again. There he goes, coming back on circuit.
Oh, so there he is Paul, currently P41 there, and he doesn't look happy, does he, unfortunately?
No, we'll check in with Paul here in between the races if he wants to talk to us. Wouldn't blame him if he didn't. We got one car off, and there's the replay. Oh, that's yeah.
I think that's live. No, Paul.
Oh, not again. I think we should just stop watching Paul right now. That's just mean on all sorts of levels, as he does gain a position as Nathan Healy goes off circuit. Back to some of the racing action that we have here. As a couple of Mercedes going toe-to-toe, and there's a little bit of a bump, and it seems like that's what some of these drivers are finding out after the first couple of laps, Nathan, is Archer is one of those drivers who kind of got moved to the side. I hope this isn't what we're going to see for this race because it's such a short race. Yep, and there goes Andy Archer once again. It seems like on the chatter there was a lot of talk about some of the driving standards, and much like the IMSA race Sunday at VIR, nobody listened.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, with the way they're driving at the moment, it seems like since round one, they've kind of learned how they can race each other, and now they're pushing those limits even more because we've seen some silly moves being made. Like in the first 7 minutes of this race, we've seen how many drivers get spun out and hit barriers. We've seen 2-3 wide moments into hairpins, as that was a move there, as Tommy Vidal loses out and drops down to 16th place. That would have been Robin Glarum, who is moving forward now after a bit of a poor start in that Mercedes. But yes, you can see the drivers now getting a little bit more too comfortable, I could say, and overconfident when they're looking to make some moves. And then looking back near the front of the field, I can see them. Marley Joffy's right on the back of James Boomy here, could possibly be looking for a move to jump up into P2.
That was actually Arthur Thurtle around there as Vidal gets there ahead of Thurtle there. We're on board with Joffy. He's just sitting there waiting station for Boomy to make a mistake. And of course, we've seen over the past couple of races, it's hard for him to make a mistake. I mean, look, he came from the back and almost won race number 2 after the full field reset.
Yeah, the pace of these top 5 guys, I'd say, is insane. Especially Boomy, Davidson, Meyer. They have some insane pace. And around a newer track, this probably helps them a little bit more because they're probably easier to adapt to a new circuit, possibly, to a completely different setup. So I think, yet again, the positives are all in their hands, as we do see there William Guthrie heading up into the top 10 there in the Pro-Am category, looking to try and take a victory here for the Pro-Ams. So Tommy Vidal just still continuing to fall back, of course, started P9 and now I believe he's down in P17. But a great start here by William Guthrie, of course. I think took a podium last time out. Yes, took a single podium out of the past 2 races and looking to make it a second here and possibly a race win going his way.
Well, Guthrie trying to move that full tilt V Motorsport up the point standing as well. I mean, look, he had a great couple of races at Fuji, so no surprise that we're seeing the number 36 Mustang up at the front and knocking on that 9th place with Joey Petrig sitting there up ahead of him. And you got to go back to Aiden Carter. They're in 12th place right now. So they've got one car to pass, which is a pro car, and that's Puritan. And then they can get up to William Guthrie's spot to battle for the top of the Pro-Am. But then again, Carter, they also have Michael Gray behind them, but that's about a 1.9 second advantage. You're on board with Carter right now, looking on the front of their Lamborghini Huracan GT3.
Indeed, and Carter had a decent first race. I think finished 19th, but then in race 2, I remember, at turn 3 at Fuji, lost the rear and unfortunately exited the race there. So, doing a great job to be P2 in the Pro-Ams and 12th overall. Definitely going to be something great for Aiden Carter heading into race 2 as well, giving themselves a bit more confidence. And I think that's a thing that a lot of drivers rely on, is being confident. And a lot of the time, drivers kind of run out of that very quickly. And then heading into race 2, you've just got to, they have no confidence in them, do they?
Battle for 14th between Simnor and Glarum. Glarum right now wants it. It's Mercedes against Mercedes. We know how these cars can take a beating. So really, that was a beautiful overtake right there by Glarum, trying to get around Simnor. I should say Simnor up into 14th right now. So 14th, 15th, and I don't know if that outside's going to work. It seems like because this is a newer facility, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to do that overtaking on the outside. We saw a lot of it at Fuji, but then again, when that track was scanned, it was older, it was a little bit more worn down. This is a newer facility. I think it opens sometime around 2017, 2018 as we see Taylor Lane go for a little bit of a spin cycle.
Yes, not ideal there for Taylor Lane, and not the first time we've seen the car get spun around at turn 6. Yeah, and you can see there, car ahead, car behind, sorry, was just way too late on the brakes, and another victim has been spun around at turn number 6. But here, once again, is Robin Glarum looking still to make a move. So we continue our way on. On to the next lap of the race. 19 minutes to go in this one, so just over a third of the way through. And of course, Simnor doing a great job to keep on to that 14th place currently, but Glerum has had some decent pace over these past couple of laps and looking to possibly go for ascent into turn 1, but Simnor shuts the door and no way through for the Williams Sim Racing driver.
Yeah, Glerum trying to get into those mirrors of Simnor, going around turn at number 3 now. And talking about turn 6, we've seen a lot of problems there. Could it be a factor of it being just so inviting it looks faster than it really is? Because if you take a look, you go left and you're on the international circuit, but you keep going straight, and that sets you up for a shortcut towards turn number 14.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, as the race goes on and heading into race 2, drivers are going to understand a little bit more of, you know, where to brake later, some of the lines to take when you want to look for overtaking, because so far you've seen a lot of drivers seeming to experiment. You know, they're going for sends and then realising, actually, no, let's back out and not go for this because it's not going to work. So there's lots of things for them to learn. And I suppose that's the good thing about having this first sprint race where things don't matter as much, because, you know, you can dial into things, learn everything you need, tune in, and then, of course, heading into that main race later on, as, you know, you call it the feature race, they've got a little bit more preparation ready and they can go for it a little bit more as we continue our way on. This is a battle for the top 4 here. Of course, Davidson has been leading ever since the start ahead of James Boomey. These two tied on points, and then it's Marley Joff there in third still, looking to hunt down on the back of Boomey. Just can't find that overtake, but I'm sure over the next 17 minutes we'll certainly have an opportunity or two. But from what we saw last time out, James Boomey can't just overtake well, he can also defend very well.
And of course, Boomey and Davidson, they're both really quick, but look at there. So one driver we haven't mentioned too much is Anders Meyer. We saw how good Meyer was in the Fuji races, and I'm not surprised that he's quietly sitting there in 4th place, plotting his attack and his chance in that Racing Line Mustang. Oh, look at how close everybody getting. And Joff looks like a little uncertain through turn 6 there, but that gives Meyer a chance to close in. Right now, your top 5, it's top 4, I should say, Mustang, Mercedes, Mustang. So a little bit of brute horsepower there in that top 4, but I've got to say, if I'm looking for a dark horse in any of these races, it's got to be Anders Meyer.
Yeah, definitely. I think we saw that last time as well. In Fuji was always kind of the best of the rest, always on the back of the top 2 or top 3. Could never quite get the move and, you know, get up into those top spots, but was always there waiting for something to happen. As we can see, our manufacturers on the screen, we have a McLaren and an AMG, and then the rest are Ford Mustangs, that being 8 of the 10 cars in the top 10. So, yes, very favoured to have the Ford around this track, I think it seems. As we can see there, Marley Joff still hunting down the back of James Boomey, looking there to close in and think about an overtake shortly. But what I'm surprised about is the pace of Ross McFarlane, normally right up there, but currently is around 3 seconds back from the race lead, so still there in the top 5, but would have expected to see him a little bit closer to the front.
Well, I mean, it's still early, but then again, you know, could McFarlane be setting up a stage for what could be a possible low number invert? Of course, the invert's going to happen after the checker flag once we get everybody through before we get the final results. So that could be part of it too. But then again, you take a look at most of the top 10 have gone up positions. Martin Toth, the only one, falling down 3.
Yep, indeed. Not been the best start here for Martin Toth. Of course, a really good qualifying, but we saw last time as well in the race, just couldn't quite dial in, just couldn't get that pace down, and unfortunately, same has happened again at the start of this one and drops down to 7th place in this race. And still a brilliant job by William Guthrie, is P10 and only around a second back from Joey Petrick here, so could possibly be a chance for Guthrie to get up into that top 9, as that's going to be Vidal and I believe Tompkins there having a battle as they make their way through. And very good start for, well, not a very good start for Vidal, but it was a very good start in race 2 last time out. I remember he made quite a few positions on the start. This time he's lost 9 on the opening laps.
So rough start for that Racing Lab Esports Mustang of Vidal. You take a look at Andy Archer. We saw the spin that he had earlier on in turn number 6, and it's only lost 3, so to lose 3 I think is pretty good, because you see some of the drivers who were involved in early race incidents, they lost double-digit positions, but Archer at least can fight back and maybe set himself up for a top 20, and if hope that it's a top 20 invert, because that means it's a front row start for that number 21 Mustang, but triple 5 Mustang, but closing in on Brian Loynes in the number 73 Mustang.
Certainly, as Archer there looking to make a move, this will be looking to get ahead of Brian Loynes as they make their way through, and of course 15th to 25th are in the spin wheel for the reverse grid, but also we have, I think, 2 spots which are available for a full grid reverse, which we had last time out in Fuji. As there is Andy Archer up into the top 20, getting ahead of Brian Loynes. Nice move indeed by the Mercedes as they head into a turn 1 once again, and looking a bit closer to the front. I've noticed on the past couple of laps, Boomy has been closing in a little bit more to Alexander Davidson, so I'm not sure if he's possibly thinking about eyeing up for a move over the next couple of laps.
Well, still plenty of time left. We're just past halfway in this race, so no surprise. We saw the Davidson early on open up a 0.7 of a second lead, but now it's about a half second as Boomy, Joff, and Meyer all closing in on the leader, and really for the podium spot in this brief sprint race around the bend.
Indeed, as we
top 4. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jeremy. I did that again last time. Keep getting caught off guard.
You don't look at each other, and I totally get it. It's doing a broadcast like this, ladies and gentlemen, is tough, because you got to get used to the rhythm by listening to somebody and not, sitting next to each other where I can touch anything, go take a look at that. So it's tough. So we might step over each other. That's live broadcast.
Indeed, and with the fact we're probably about 3,000 or 4,000 miles away, I don't think it's that easy for us to be sitting next to each other, unfortunately. So we're going to have to deal with our remote broadcasting for now. But as I was going to say, the top 4 very close together still, and they're pulling away more from Ross McFarlane. That gap's gone out another second in the past 2 or 3 laps. So the top 4 seem to be, on a planet of their own at the moment, and maybe they're purposely not making overtakes because they know the more pace they just put down, the more they're going to pull away from the top, from 5th and below, and then give it maybe the last 5 minutes. They can go for a bit of a battle.
Still plenty of time, of course, if they decide to sit there in the top 4, I should say, and hold station. That would be great too, because really you got this battle for the lead right here. Also, I'm watching that Patrick Guthrie battle that we've been watching. Of course, that's an out-of-class battle, but still a battle for overall position. Then you got to go back to the Carter Gray battle. And one thing I was going to talk about with Carter is, they moved up from last year into the Pro-Am class. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but we see right now that battle right there. Carter was the Am champ coming in and decided, you know what? I'm going to take my talents to Pro-Am. And we're seeing how that is really paid big dividends as they're constantly running in the top 20. Right now, 12th overall, 2nd in class. It's still got to go 4.7 seconds, 4.8 seconds to Pyronin, but still 2nd place in class for your 3rd race. That's got to feel great.
Certainly, especially when you're keeping Michael Gray behind, who was brilliant last time out in Fuji. Had a really good couple of races, 2 podiums in the end of that one. So this could be a really good result here for Aidan Carter. Of course, was looking to try and take a podium in race 1, I think finished like P6, and then in race 2, of course, that big shunt on the first couple of laps, and unfortunately finished near the back of the field. So this could be a brilliant result here for Aidan Carter in the number 35 Lamborghini, and I believe, yet again, the only Lamborghini that we have on the grid. So doing a great job in that car. He's Carter indeed. And then, of course, Michael Gray not being the best start in this one. He's sitting P13 overall, and normally you'd say for a Pro-Am driver that's pretty damn good, but considering Guthrie's about what 8 seconds up the road, you'd expect him to be a little bit closer.
Just a little bit, but then again, when you have the talent that's up at the front, it's not surprising to see that it's only so far, but only about 12 seconds till 18 seconds. Holy cow. That is one heck of a gap as we see Gray just in shot back there. That Galarium Simner battle's actually died down just a little bit. Now Arthur Thurl is closing in on Dickie Simnor. That's a Pro-Am Pro battle, but still the battle for 15th spot. Got under 10 minutes left to go. Your top 5, Davidson, Boomy, Joff, and Meyer. There's that battle we're talking about between Simnor and Thurl. Thurl also been one of those drivers, in spite of being at the back of the pro class, really quietly been working his way up to the front. I would not be surprised this season at all, Nathan, to see him log an overall top 10 in the pro class.
Yeah, certainly. I think he's definitely getting there. It's got, it might take a couple of races, but once you get into that rhythm and you get the perfect setup, perfect car, everything can go well. So hopefully we can see him getting into that top 10 as the races go on. But the battle for the AM category is starting to heat up very quickly, because we have Elliot Roberts, Brian Loynes and Dan McCauley, 20th, 21st and 22nd, all battling for the top 3 in that class. So this battle is certainly one to keep an eye on as we continue our way back down towards turn number 1. Let's see what happens here. 8.5 minutes to go, as that's Elliot Roberts there in the number 78.
Yeah, Roberts still staying in that top 20, but how much longer as Loynes closing in, and not too far away is Dan McCauley as well. Good to see Archer making his way up into the top 20, and of course this is such a tight battle as well. One wheel wrong, and you're going to see 2 drivers pounce, or maybe even 3 depending on who is where, though. Was Cooking Racing Adventures team looking pretty good so far, and actually it's a very interesting paint scheme. It's a kid of the 90s. I find that actually kind of intriguing. It has that 90s look to it.
Yeah, it's a nice livery, isn't it? I like the colours. The white, blue, purple, really, really nice livery there. And of course the head as well. I really like Andy Archer's livery in that it's like an atomic green, isn't it? Like a fluorescent green colour with the black at the front, really nice. And I think the Mercedes as well are really nice cars to put a paint job on. They do look really, really cool. Yes, less about the actual cars and more about the racing, because we do see Brian Loynes there catching up even closer to the back of Elliot Roberts and looking to try and move up into the lead of the AM category. Here's the onboard here of Brian Loynes as we make our way through. Part of the Altitude Esports by Mr. Hedge team, who currently, I believe, sit P6 in their category. So hopefully can score a couple more podiums in this this evening and get a little bit higher in the championship.
So Nathan, while you were talking, I was able to check, cross-reference timing and our chat that we have with World Sim Racing. Ben Gregory came out of the driver chat and went, dude. And he actually came into the pits for a 1.2 second stop. So wonder if we could get we'll see if we can get a replay on that, because you had Gregory and Altria with issues. Mushka back into the pits as well to maybe fix some sort of damage. Right now, we technically have all 44 cars running with Grabowski, hoping that we get another full field invert. And for the rest of us here, whether we're in the broadcast booth or racing, no, we don't want another full field invert, because we already saw how much mayhem the first lap was, and we qualified everybody straight through.
Yeah, certainly, and that was when it was dry up until the last 5 minutes. If we get any rain in race 2 and it's a full reverse grid, that's going to be interesting. Chaotic, but yes, for the drivers, they're probably thinking, please no, that is like the last possibility that they want. Unless you're maybe a quick driver who ends up starting at the front, maybe you'll be a little bit more happy. You can just pull away and just try and run your own race. But with 5.5 minutes to go, that tells me there's going to be no pit stops here in this sprint race. And then of course we have our 60-minute race after this one with our reversed grid, which of course we will decide after this race is concluded. And up in the top 4, I can't really see there being any changes there, because it's like they've all got the same pace. Nobody's quicker than anyone, so they're just stuck where they are. So it's going to take a big lunge from somebody, possibly Joff or Meyer, to try and get something started, and then that's when all hell breaks loose. So we'll have to see what happens over the next 5 minutes. But Davidson has just looked comfortable all race long. Hasn't looked like he's under any pressure. Hasn't been making any mistakes. He's just kept a calm head and for someone who you'd be expecting to fight for the championship, this is a championship driver's drive, isn't it?
It really is, but you know, here's the thing: you got the driver who's in second place. Here's a replay, and I think I know what may have happened here. As we're watching from Benjamin Gregory's point of view, so far so good. And yep, the door just opened just a little bit, and oops. Yep, that's a little case of bumper cars full send. Mendonca involved with that one, so we'll see if Mendonca can trudge around these next 4 minutes with what little damage he has. But nonetheless, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, it's great for Davidson because he's a points leader, but he's still got a second place in points. Boomy right behind him, so what kind of points are you going to be gaining here with second place sitting right behind you, about a half second? Of course, we're working lap number 15 as we see on our timings. About 3 to 4 laps left to go in this race. That would not be, yeah, I think we're going to go to 3 laps to go as they come across the line here in just a little bit.
I'm not going to say how many laps to go because I can never work it out. My brain is no good with times and clocks, so I'm not going to say anything stupid and say. So I'll go for your word on it, Jeremy. We'll hope your word is correct. 3 laps to go here in this one, and of course, I think out of all of those in the top 3 that have actually looked to make moves, I think it's been Joff. He's, you know, closed in on the back of Boomy on a couple of occasions. Never quite enough though to go for any sort of send or a bit of a lunge. But I think he's just trying to put some pressure here under that Mustang, and considering the Mercedes doesn't seem to be a favoured car here, it's performing pretty well. You know, currently sitting in the top 3 on leaders' pace quite comfortably. And then, of course, looking a little bit further back, the likes of McFarlane in P5, about 4 seconds back from the leaders, so has got some decent pace, but just at the moment not enough to really contend with them. But I'm sure either way, McFarlane, Evzoka, Toth will be quite happy with their 5th, 6th and the 7th, because yet again they've got a nice healthy gap to crow through on those below.
They really do. And, of course, that's in spite of Toth losing 3 positions off the start. Because really, since the start of the race, most of your top 10, they've all basically held station. You know, get out there, save your tires, save your equipment, quote-unquote, as we're on board with Anders Meyer, watching this top 3, just one big snake. And, of course, what's going to be interesting now is how is lap traffic going to play a part? I don't know if it's going to play too much of a part. I think they're going to be smart enough just to get over. It's one of the Mercedes who is involved. Of course, Nathan Healy is the driver. Ford a second, so he'll be the first car put 1 lap down on speed as they come around turn 17. Now set themselves up for 18.
Indeed.
That was a close dive.
Oh, 2 cars going through as well. That was a scary moment. 3 going through as well as we head our way back down towards turn 1. Nathan Healy would have had a big frightener there heading out of turn 18. I think ahead there was a move possibly being made as well as they head all down in towards turn 1, 2 and 3. And of course, this section here, it's so difficult to make a move, but if you can get a good run around that outside, it's a perfect place to go for an overtake, because once you get ahead here, you've got such a good run all the way down to probably down towards turn 6 at the hairpin, keep that inside line, and then you've got it all the way through to turn 12. So it's about placing the car at the right point at the right time.
Penultimate lap on the track, white flag this time by, so it's going to be go time for some of these drivers, and Boomy was close. I mean, we're talking about within a 1/10 of a second off of Davidson, but that gap is opening up just a little bit as Davidson just too good, too fast. So far in race number 1, taking his equipment all the way to the top and really dominating so far, but we'll see what happens here as we get close to the invert. See the lap traffic once again getting passed further back. But yeah, that was an interesting move by Boomy. I think he probably felt, you know what, if I don't make the move now, it's going to be pretty much game over. Still wants to assure himself, but was that a risk that he shouldn't have taken?
Yeah, I think they've got to be careful, haven't they? Especially when they're, you know, in the top 4, top 5, and there's only 30 seconds to go. You know, one more lap and that's it. You'd think that they'd be a little bit more careful. especially when they're guaranteed some healthy points finishing up in that top 4. And then, of course, we have that main race to go later on where there's even more points on offer. And here we go. So this will be, I believe, the last lap, final lap of the race. Let's see, is there any moves for 2nd, 3rd and 4th? Because I think Davidson is clear, 8 in front, but you can see mileage off on a few occasions, getting closer to the back of Boomy. Is he going to go for a strike and go for a move?
Well, we got this battle here in the bottom half of the top 10. You've got Guthrie ahead of Pyramid and Petrick and Carter. Carter sitting there in 12th, the interesting spectator. Petrick and Pyramid have been making moves. We'll keep an eye on that. But this one, oh, look at Meyer getting a little loose coming off of turn number 5. And going to lose just a little bit, but not enough to make too much of a difference. Single file coming off of 7. And I don't think that unless they're going to make a move, it's going to be out of desperation. But then again, you really want to make yourself available there in case somebody does make a little bit of a wiggle.
Elliot Roberts from the lead of the AM category is in the pit lane. Oh, I think has misjudged the fuel there.
What a shame to have that happen on the last lap. Taylor Lane also hitting the pits.
Oh, dear me, that's not the way they would have wanted their first races to go, especially considering Elliot Roberts was in the lead of the AM category, now falls down to, I think, P5 or 6 in that category. Let's hope none of our top 4 end up having the same fate as they have only a few corners to go.
Yeah, they do, coming off of turn number 16. Some other lap traffic, but it won't be too much. Oh, looks like got a battle for 2nd place here as Boomy holding off Joff. Is this the move that we were looking for here at the end? Joff was all over the back of Boomy through the beginning of the race, decided to wait. The checker flag will come out for Davidson as he'll take the win, but Boomy moving off to the side across the line. It's going to be Boomy over Joff. So talk about one heck of a race there for the end as Davidson, Boomy, Joff 1, 2, 3. Your Pro-Am winner, William Guthrie, finishes 9th overall. What a fantastic race out of the Full Tilt V Motorsport Ford Mustang. Of course, we still got the AM leader. That's Brian Loynes in the Altitude Esports by Mr. Hedge Mustang around turn number 18. Across the line, that's your AM winner. Weaving left to right, taking the checker flag in this 30-minute race. So couple of drivers having some issues with fuel pickup, but Nathan, nonetheless, I thought we were going to see a grandstand finish. We almost did there for 2nd place.
Yeah, nearly. We had a bit of a battle, didn't we, towards turn 17, just not quite into the final corner. As we still have a couple more cars to cross the line. We might have a grandstand finish here across the line. That's 3 of our cars, and they all make it through. But of course, a great job there by Brian Loynes to take the win in the AM category. And then it was Dan McCauley and then Jacques Saver rounding off the top 3 there. And still we have another battle. This is Joe Coffin looking to battle it out here with, I think, John Roberts.
Oh, that's a tight battle as Roberts almost had a nose there, but Coffin's going to come across the line and take that position. So, still, we had so many great tight battles there for all sorts of leads. So Roberts over Coffin. Here's that reverse grid. How many are we inverting today? No. Oh my goodness. Could it be? Well, it's right there in the middle. 24 we'll invert the top 24. So we'll talk about that here in a bit. So Alexander Davidson and James Boomy will be back there in row 12, but Marley Joffa will round out your podium. Anders Meyer, Ross McFarlane, your top 5 there. Michael Ivdaka and Martin Toth in 7th. 8th goes to Harrison Crowther. 9th to William Guthrie, your Pro-Am winner. And Nathan rounding out your top 10 is Matthias Pirinen.
Indeed, and then looking at P11, Dan Joe Petrick, who finished just behind the back of Pirinen, and then P2 in the Pro-Am category is Aidan Carter ahead of Robin Glerham, who made a good comeback in that race, finishing ahead of podium sitter for the Pro-Am category, Michael Gray. Then it was Dickie Simnor, the top 15, ahead of Arthur Thurtle, 16th, Adam Tompkins. Then we had Tommy Vidal, Andy Archer, and then our race winner for the AM category, Brian Loynes, rounding off the top 20.
Let's take a look at 21st. It's Daniel McCauley, Jacques Eva. Then it's Tom Griffith in the Series 1 racing number 23. Frank Sikorsky, who will be a part of your front row alongside Tom Griffiths in 24th in the Project 91 Academy team. Howard, there's your P91 update. You'll have one of your drivers out there on the front row. Then it's Jesse Payne Wilkins and Jonathan Walker, who are not the beneficiaries of the invert. Phil Samways, Hakan Aidi Lindmo, Adam Watson, and Byron Crawford round out your top 30.
Indeed, and for the rest of the grid, we have David Mendonca, not a good race in the number 5 Pro category car, ahead of Elliot Roberts, who was in that leading spot but must have run out of fuel on the last couple of laps. And then we have Lee Berridge in 33rd, ahead of our very own Paul Smith. Did recover and finished 34th, ahead of John Roberts in P35, and Joe Coffin ahead of Taylor Lane. Adam Hedgecock 38th, Benjamin Gregory 39th, Ben Altria in the top 40. And then our final 4 drivers, we have Patrick Falconer, Nathan Healy, Dennis Grabowski, and then Eric Muska, the top 44.
Well, we're taking a look at some of the driver chats. Lots of apologies for contact, and that seemed to be the name of the game for race number 1, Nathan, where it was more like bumper cars for the first couple of laps than it was a race.
Yeah, certainly. You could tell it took them a little bit of time to get tuned into the track and just figure out how things work. But near the end, you know, they started to have a little bit more cleaner battles. Less chaos at turn 6 at the hairpin, which on the first couple of laps, it was just constant car after car going off. Near the end, pretty much everything there was kind of solved and no more issues. So heading into the second race, yet again we'll have our 24 cars reversed. Of course, it'll be Sikorsky on pole ahead of Griffiths. That's going to be, I believe, an AM driver and a Pro-Am starting on the front row. And then yet again, what can Davidson do? Boomy, Meyer, who all started at the back last time, they've already got 20 positions done for them. So 24th to 1st, surely for one of those guys, that's going to be a possibility.
You got 4AM starting near the front with Sikorsky, our pole starter, which you mentioned. So that's going to make life a little bit more interesting. Now, for the drivers who finished first and second, we saw how quick they came through the field. They don't have as far to come back today, and even if we did have a full field, still wouldn't have to come back as far. But still, it's going to be interesting to see how Davidson and Boomy come up to get back to the front.
Certainly, and I think this is also a bit of a blessing in disguise for Ben Altria, because we knew that last time out, the pace was electric for Fuji, really, really good. Probably could have fitted into the Pro-Am category quite fine. And then the pace was good at the start of this race until, unfortunately, he had a bit of an issue on, I think it was like lap 3 or 4. Starts in the top 10 now, has a perfect opportunity to prove once again that he's got the pace to not be in the AM category and to possibly look to try and take a win in that category as well. So possibly a bit of a blessing in disguise here for Ben Altria, but has got to try and make it through the first couple of laps first off. But of course, heading into this one now, Davidson, of course, is our championship leader ahead of James Boomy, but the P3 there for mileage off puts him ahead of Anders Meyer. And with the sort of point system we have here, Jeremy, and how close our top 4 are, it's just going to be every race constantly swapping for that top 4 in the championship.
And of course, we saw that top 4 today kind of stay single file. So I think that was a good move on their part because they weren't racing each other too much except near the end, which we saw the battle there for second place really heat up, especially in the final couple of corners. But now, because they didn't battle too hard, they didn't knock each other off track, that sets themselves up for a decent start.
Yeah, definitely, and they've just got to make it through carefully on the first couple of laps. And like I mentioned last week in Fuji, there are drivers that are going to be maybe a second off pace, maybe a little bit more. So when they're heading into braking zones a bit slower or taking a little bit less speed through the corners, you've got to be careful. Got to give them a bit of leeway because they're not just going to magically speed up because you're there. You've got to kind of judge your way around them. So our quicker drivers have to be careful on those opening laps when looking to make the moves ahead of some of these slower drivers. But then, of course, for some of those that unfortunately didn't make that reversed grid, they still have opportunities themselves to move forward, possibly to follow through with some of our quicker pro drivers. If they can just kind of copy what they do, they can make some big moves themselves.
Yeah, and you mentioned those opportunities too in Spite, but still you gotta stop and figure. In Pro-Am, you had William Guthrie as your winner there. Over in AM, Brian Loyne. So they set themselves up for a good start here in this hour race. And of course, pit strategy is also going to come into play. We'll be right back. We'll get ourselves set up for race number 2 here on Race Spot TV in just a couple of minutes.
past all of them as well. What a move from the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Welcome back to live coverage of racetrack number 2. It's the Shell V-Power at the Bend. Jeremy Scott alongside Nathan Richards here on RaceSpotTV, the World Sim Racing Championship taking place here. Talk about race 1 a little bit more. Did race 1 exceed or beat your expectations? Because really going in, it was a big unknown.
It was. I didn't know what to expect. All I knew was that the track was not easy. You know, it's a hard track, is the Bend here, of course, brand new to our racing pretty much. I expected a bit of chaos at the start, just while drivers got themselves, a bit more prepared, which we did. We had quite a few incidents at the beginning of the race. As the race got on, things got a little bit more calmer, especially at the front. The top 10 didn't change, I think, for the past 10 laps. I think it was pretty much the same the whole time. Of course, we did see a few lunges, here and there towards the end, but I'm sure for that first race, the drivers were just happy in finishing in their positions and getting some good points. But of course, we saw, I think, compared to last week, a lot more battling in the midfield and at the back, especially with some of our Ram drivers and Pro-Ams. A lot more than what we saw in Fuji. And if we can get the same again here, heading into race 2, I'm sure we'll be in for a cracker of a race. Of course, we've got around 6.5 minutes, Tom, until we can get our way underway for the second race of the evening. And of course, Jeremy, it's a 60-minute race. A lot longer than what we had in the first one, with a pit stop as well in between.
So something just caught my eye real quick, and we'll talk about the new changes that iRacing will have in the next season. Aiden Carter and the driver chat said, this track, with William Guthrie replying, feels like a motocross track paved without the jumps.
So they don't like it, I think. Is that the word?
Yet to be seen. We'll see what happens. But iRacing earlier this week, last week, I should say, came out with new release notes for the next season that they're working on. And a couple of interesting things came out as well. We're getting a new Aston Martin. And of course, the big question here in World Sim Racing is who's going to go do the new Aston Martin? And that's, I think, a reason why we don't see that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I mean, I don't know much about the GT3 cars. I've driven a few of them. My favourite one being the Mercedes. I love that car. I love the sound of it. Love the way it drives. The Aston Martins, I've tried in other games as well. It's a decent car, but of course, heading into our race, they've got to kind of make sure that they get the bot perfect and that the car is balanced and either not too good or not too bad. I think we've seen it in the past many times, haven't we? When they bring a new car in, it just takes a little bit of time to get balanced fully.
And of course, some new tracks, and one that I'm excited most about are the streets of St. Petersburg. Last time IndyCar was on site, the iRacing folks did get a chance to scan it. As somebody who's been at the track at St. Petersburg, not when they had the walls up, but still, that's an extremely neat addition to the service.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure as well. I read something about I think the Mexico Grand Prix F1 circuit being added. Forgot the name of it. Autodromo Rodriguez. I'm so bad at names.
I've been watching I've watched them since they raced in Champ Car, but yeah, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez will be in the service as well. So a couple new additions that could be in some either the series that you race in or here in World Sim Racing. So a lot of neat things going on. You see the ticker in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, 3 minutes, 56 seconds into this practice session. Of course, not much of a change there either, as track temperature 24 degrees Celsius, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. I should say the air temperature, the track temperature 29 degrees Celsius, 85 degrees Fahrenheit. What's nice is it's a dry air as well, 20 degrees humidity, and about 5, 6, 7 kilometers per hour the wind as well.
Yeah, so quite comfortable conditions, I think, here for the drivers. And we did see it, didn't we, at the end of the race when it did start to get a little bit more sunnier. There's a few more, a few less clouds in the sky, a little bit more blue. And of course, that might, give them a bit more positivity. I always feel when I'm racing so dull and bored when it's a grey sky or black sky, but when it's a nice blue sky, lots of sun, it makes you feel a little bit more positive. So hopefully that's what the drivers can have instilled into them. But of course, 60-minute race, the main part of this one, I think, in terms of the big difference, is the pit stop. This has got to be key, because we saw last time, didn't we, on so many occasions drivers were gaining or losing 1 or 2 seconds in the pits, and when you're battling for some key positions, whether it's the lead of your class or the lead overall, you can't be affording to lose in a second or two. And around a track like this, where it's new, they've used that pit lane a lot less, they've got to make sure that everything is pitch perfect. As here, we'll go on board for a quick ride with David Mendonca, who goes onto the grass, and that is not the ideal line through turn 7.
Of course, we saw that he was involved in a little ton near the end of the race, the Solpec machine going off course and taking some agriculture, as good friend of sim racing, Tony Kanaan, did in the Indy 500 one year, and said, I saw some blades of grass that need to be cut.
Indeed. Lawnmower Mercedes there for Mendonca. As that someone going into the pits? Yeah, that is well, it kind of just throws at you, doesn't it, that pit lane there? Straight over to the left, onto the brakes, and into the pit lane you go. So yes, it's going to be an interesting race indeed. Can't wait to get into it. Of course, we have only got a minute and a half until we get underway. Of course, we'll see our grid as well for this one. It is a top 24 reversed, if you are just tuning in now, which means it'll be Sikorsky on pole and Griffiths in second place. And then, of course, Alexander Davidson, who last time went from, I think, something like 38th to, I think it was second or first, and this time only has to do it from 24th. So, question is, how many laps is it going to take him to get up at the front?
Exactly. And it reminds me, there's another track in Australia, and somebody in the chat's going to remind me of it, because I watch so much supercar racing, but after a while, the track's the layout, but that's not the first racetrack in Australia that has a weird pit entry on the exit of a corner. So if somebody can say that in the chat, I would be forever grateful. Don't have anything of you, just my appreciation, as we're under a minute left in this session. Michael Gray so far the fastest, but I think a lot of drivers kind of taking a little bit of a break, getting ready for the 60-minute race and studying their strategy. Phillip Island, Hugo with the perfect. Yeah, that's not the one I was thinking of, though. It was another one. I got to pull it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about racetracks in Australia. I know the ones in the UK, a few dotted around the world, and then that's kind of it. I don't go much further than that. I mean, I don't know half of the racetracks right in the UK either. I didn't realise until 2 years ago that Silverstone was only an hour and a half away from me, so there we go. Yes, I need to learn about all my racetracks and stuff, because there's so much information I lose out on. And I mean, in the US, Jeremy, I guarantee there's hundreds of circuits, isn't there?
Oh, there are. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, heck, when I first got started watching sports car and open wheel racing in the United States, I never realized how close, the Milwaukee Mile and Road America really were until I first drove up there in 2007 for my first race weekend as an official. So it's, the Midwest is home to a lot of racetracks, but they're all over the place, as practice has just ended here at the Bend. So we get set for round 4 of the World GT Championship. And here comes the grid, as Frank Sikorsky and Tom Griffiths will lead the field to the green flag with Jacques Eva alongside Daniel McCauley. Then it's Brian Loynes and Andy Archer in row number 3. You take a look at row number 4, Tommy Vidal and Adam Tompkins. They'll be in front of Arthur Thurtle and Dickie Simnor. Now, those two had a great battle in the middle of the last race. I think we're set for another great start there with them two rounding out your top 10.
Indeed, and after a great weekend in Fuji, it was Michael Gray that starts P11 ahead of Robin Garham in 12th place. And then in 13th, it's Aidan Carter, who we expect a lot from this evening, ahead of Joe Petrig in 14th, and Matthias Pahonen running off the top 15. William Guthrie, winner of the Pro-Am category last time round, starts P16 ahead of Harrison Crowther and Martin Toth in the top 18. And then we have Michael Evdoka and Ross McFarlane, our top 20.
Anders Meyer and Marley Joffa are in row 11, row 12, James Boomey and Alexander Davidson. That rounds out your inversion. Now, here's the rest of the field. It's Jesse Payne-Wilkins and Jonathan Walker. Then you got Phil Samways and Hakon Eidi Lindmo. And rounding out your top 30, Adam Watson and Byron Crawford.
Indeed, and then for the final places on this grid, we have David Mendonca in 31st, ahead of Elliot Roberts in 32nd place. And we have Lee Berridge and our very own Paul Smith, John Roberts, and then Joe Coffin running off the top 36. And then we have Benjamin Gregory in 37th, ahead of Ben Altria, of course, race winner in both races last time out in Fuji. Unfortunate starts here. This evening, he's ahead of Patrick Falconer, then Adam Hedgecock, our top 40. And finally, we have Nathan Healy in 41st, Denis Grabowski in 42nd, and then Eric Muska rounding off the top 43, which means we have lost one driver since race 1.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there with we're down one driver, but nonetheless, still a interesting grid here. And by the way, that track that I was thinking of, that is Wanneroo Raceway, or for those who are current in their Australian motorsport lineage, carco.com.au Raceway. So look that up. That's an interesting start. There's Daniel McCauley, who will be right there near the front in row 2 there, and we're on board with the Series 1 racing driver. Neat little setup there. I kind of like the headrest there. I need to, at the Sim Gaming Expo next weekend, I've got to figure out how to get one of those seats.
I mean, they are insane, aren't they? You know, I'm 20 years old, a lot older there than I presume Daniel is, and he's got a way better rig than I'll ever have, so lucky Daniel indeed. I mean, that seat itself must cost like, what, 400, 500, 600 quid? My setup costs that.
So, well, yeah, you got to set it up on wheels, and, you know, because you can't really, I'd imagine that's straight from a race car, but then again, they've got all these sim games. I can't wait to see what they come up with the sim, the sim rigs and everything.
It's insane. I mean, they make me feel old. I remember when I first started getting involved in the scene, that was only 2021. And the rigs they had then, I was like, wow, they're good. And now they have ones that move, and it's just, they're insane. I mean, some of them probably are more expensive than an actual car, but for what they are designed to do, they are just out of this world nowadays.
Oh, they definitely are. So we'll see. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be interesting. If you're in the United States, head to the Sim Gaming Expo in Schaumburg. We're going to have a lot of fun. Base car rolling their way around turn number 15, setting up for turn number 16, and get ready for a start. Again, 60 minutes. Going to be interesting to see when pit strategy comes into play here in this second race of the day here at the Bend. As once again, Frank Sikorsky and Tom Griffiths are on your front row. Tight turn number 17 is the field working their way around the final course. We'll see the Porsche pace car make the left. I'm not going to say hard left because it's a very strange pit entry there into pit road, and there he goes right into the pits. It's Sikorsky's green flag calls. They come down the straightaway for the first time in the 60-minute race. Green flag is out, and so far so good as we see. Look at the jump, though, that Sikorsky has as Griffiths falling back to third, maybe even fourth. 2-3 wide near the back, Nathan. This is going to be an interesting finish as we go 4 wide, almost one spin, and that's going to be Griffiths. So Griffiths goes from second into almost a gravel, and more carnage there in turn number 1.
And that was a tap there from Andy Archer into turn 1. Brakes a little bit too late, and that's somebody else, right? And that's going to be, I think, Evdoka Rain, unfortunately, as we continue our way on. And what an interesting start we've had here. We're not even a lap in, and we've had cars spin, we've had cars make some interesting overtakes, and cars running wide there, as that was Robin Glarham.
Yeah, Glarum with a little bit of a wide entry, and one car spun off, and lots of holding on to the brakes there in turn number 6. So turn 6 rears its ugly head once again as the car is trying to jostle for position here in the start of this 60-minute race. Phil Samway's up 6 positions so far in that number 11 full tilt motorsport Mercedes. A little bit of Clyde getting picked up there along through the S's into 11 and 12, and of course battle for position as McCauley tries to get around Sikorsky, and he's gonna do it so far. Gets the nose out front, heading into turn number 13 and into 14 as Sikorsky gets that lead back. So not able to hold on is McCauley, but Eva also wants to play there. And look at that, Michael Gray, a driver we saw in the top 10 earlier on. He wants a piece of that lead as well.
Indeed, and one thing I love to see, we're here for an overall race. The top 3 is... Oh, that was close. Michael Gray being pushed off, allowing Brian Loynes to get involved. But as I was going to say, the top 3 fighting for the overall lead are all in the AM category. It's the top 4 now as Brian Loynes goes ahead, and now we've got Gray, Vidal, Crowther, Avdoka as well, all getting involved. Down to turn 1, it's 3 wide.
Hold on to your breath, as this is going to be a little bit mayhem. You really can't make it 3 wide, maybe 2 wide. Oh, looks like Gray goes a little wide and going to shortcut the course around turn number 3. Might have to give a little bit of position back, get a slowdown penalty here. Oh, look at Vidal. Vidal trying to get inside of Loynes here, coming off a 3. They're side by side for position. Again, this is the battle for the top 5 overall. Into 5, let's see if both drivers can make it through 6, and indeed, there's that slowdown penalty for Michael Gray. 3 wide for position going into turn 6. Oh, man. Boomy was the one who tried to go 3 wide, but loses position there.
Oh, and it was deep as well for Harrison Crowther, who's now having a battle side by side with Michael Avdoka as they make their way through in towards turns 9 and 10, then preparing himself for 11 and 12. What a battle we got here. This is for P4 downwards. Of course, James Boomy, what a start. Started P23 and already in the top 9 after just one singular lap as we continue our way on. Aidan Carter there under pressure as well from Boomy. Is this going to be a move by James Boomy? No. For now, just sits back as they head into the final corner though, but further ahead we've got cars going side by side. Yet again, we could see 3 wide as Avdoka goes through to P5 ahead of Brian Loynes, who gets tap drained by Tommy Vidal.
Vidal with a tap of... yeah, that's just not the move you want to make. And unfortunately, we saw how much of that happened early on. And it's a 60-minute race, so I would imagine, I thought we would have a little bit calmer as Glarum and the Williams Sim Racing Mercedes watching this battle for position between Boomy and Carter. Oh, Carter shoves off Boomy just a little bit. Boomy keeps it on track, but Glarum able to go around. That's for 3rd spot in the pro category as for the first time, someone's actually gotten around Boomy for position all race long.
Indeed, but Boomy straight back at Glarum into turn 1 we go. Boomy breaks later to the inside. Can he go ahead? Because there is Anders Meyer as well, looking to try and get ahead as well. As Robin Glarum there being done a little bit dirty. As James Boomy does get that position up into P8, as then Anders Meyer gets ahead of Robin Glarum, moves up into P9. Glarum down to P10 as here. He's Matthias Bahonen in P11, 4 positions gained since the start. Has been a very competitive driver so far. He's always in and around that top 10. And he's a little bit... Oh, that's a second and a half. That's a bit too late for Matthias.
And Matthias, yeah, decides to take Anders Meyer around for a spin cycle. So let's see if Meyer can come up through the pack or if they decide to change their pit strategy. That was also a rare mistake, so we'll see a penalty being held there. We see Guthrie and Healy going for position, but Thurtle also trying to get into some sort of higher spot. He and Petre going at it once again. It seems like that they found each other. We have a new leader. It's Dan McCauley over Sikorsky for the time being, as they're still neck and neck heading into the corner. Oh, look at Sikorsky, a little bit of a swipe. That was clean, and thankfully nobody got off track, but I've got to say this, Sikorsky holding off McCauley. Look at the focus that McCauley has in that Cadillac Racing shirt. He's really trying to get back around Sikorsky for the lead.
He certainly is. What a race it's been so far by these two at the front of the field. So head through towards the final couple of corners, and once again Sikorsky leads as we head on to our next lap of the race, ahead of Daniel McCauley, and then Jacques Siva still in that top 3, and that is an all-AM top 3 here. As we head back down towards turn 1, of course, Tommy Vidal making some good moves at the start. It's P6 here in this one, and Aiden Carter as well. Once again, brilliant starters. Here's a replay into turn 1, and that was where we got the tap from Andy Archer onto the back of Tom Griffiths.
Yeah, that was kind of... I'm not gonna lie, you know, we were kind of anticipating that. And here's another spinner. That's Guthrie, who was playing some bumper cars there around turn 4. Of course, nothing that, you know, could have been saved. And here comes Sikorsky McCauley once again. This battle for the lead has been nothing but spectacular, going back and forth between the two drivers in the AM category and overall as they go neck and neck, clean but rough between the two of them. Sikorsky goes deep once again. McCauley trying to get a nose out front, but Nathan, once he gets that nose out front, Sikorsky just goes a little bit deeper and right there, McCauley has no answer for Sikorsky, but look at who's behind also. You've got Eva, Crowther, and Evdaka. Also, Boomy making his way up to the front.
Indeed, I mean, what a battle these two have had. This is brilliant to see, as we do see Crowther getting ahead, and so does Evdoka, ahead of Jacques Eva, down to P5 now for the number 45 as they make their way through into the final couple of corners. And Sikorsky and McCauley, unfortunately, it's a shame to say that they probably won't be fighting for the lead for much longer, because the pro drivers are on their way. They're looking to try and get to the front themselves. The first two being Crowther and Evdoka, and here is, that's Byron Crawford. Completely off the circuit there, a bit of a tap, and unfortunately that's a race ender.
Looks like Crawford may have lost his rear wing as well as Martin Toth. This is just going to be a track to forget for Toth, as he had issues in race 1. Now race 2 gets spun around. Brian Loins, we saw that, and yep, just a little bit of a spin cycle. We also saw Byron Crawford with some issues. This has just been a wretched start for some of our front runners, as Nathan Healy goes for a slide through the grass as well. Just misses the tire walls. Here comes Harrison Crowther for that second spot. Gets around Daniel McCauley with ease. Now sets his sights on Frank Sikorsky as we see McCauley flashing the lights, but Evdaka going to go around the inside, take that position around turn number 6, might shove him up just a little bit, do a little bit of the Pruitt fade, as McCauley now has lost 2 spots in just a handful of corners.
Certainly has. That was a scary one there for McCauley, but you could see as well he didn't fight the positions as much as we saw with Sikorsky, but just because it's not worth losing all those positions and potentially getting damaged because of a battle with a car which is a lot quicker as they continue their way on. So it's still Sikorsky in the lead of the race, ahead of Harrison Crowther and Michael Evdoka. And of course James Boomy has just been stuck there in P7, rare to say. James Boomy stuck in position behind the back of Tommy Vidal, and then of course Alexander Davidson as well enters that top 10. As here's James Boomy, he's heard me say he's not making moves, he goes for one, and he's ahead of Tommy Vidal into P6.
Yeah, I think he heard that and didn't like that comment he made, so now he's really dropping the hammer there. But Harrison Crowther really closing in on Sikorsky. It'll be pro versus Sam here in just a little bit. And now when the pit window opens, it's going to be interesting to see who goes for what. Oh, a little bit of a wheel off there for Boomy as he sets his sights on Eva in that 5th place. So just outside of the top 5, just north of 50 minutes left to go. And so far, these past 10 minutes have been nothing short of action-packed, as drivers going off, drivers making passes. Here comes Boomy to the inside of Eva for that 5th position. Eva goes wide, and that gives Boomy a chance to go around, but Vidal also might have an answer there, as well as Carter and Davidson going for position back and forth for that 9th spot, as once again Carter falling back into 9th, now in the 10th I should say, and now in 11th that's Robin Glarum, as we're on board with the Ross McFarlane I should say, as McFarlane looks to the inside of Glarum there as well.
Indeed, lots of moves happening here. A great battle for P9 and below. Of course, Carter trying to hold off Davidson as long as possible, just couldn't quite do it until after about 3 or 4 laps, and finally Davidson gets that move complete. Of course, Vidal as well ahead of Jacques Eva up into P6, as now we can see Glarum right on the rear of that Lamborghini, looking to make a move. And I think the issue here that Glarum has is, if Glarum doesn't make that move, McFarlane's going to pounce and look to make a move himself. And behind McFarlane, we've got Adam Watson, who's also got some decent pace here. So they've got to get a move on here and get ahead of Aiden Carter as quickly as possible. And here's a battle near the front here. Is Evdoka looking to get ahead of Harrison Crowther. They head it side by side through. Oh, and no move being made there for Evdoka. Was side by side, but just couldn't carry that speed around the outside. Not enough grip, and for now has to sit in that P2, as we do see James Boomy looking to get up into P4.
And indeed he does. Gets around McCauley, who's now dropped all the way back to 5th place. So now Boomy sets his sights on 2 drivers who are in the same class as he is. And it's right now AM Pro in the AM in your top 5. As we see Crowther now catching up to Sikorsky. Sikorsky is saying, you're going to go a long way around if you really want that position. Crowther says, we'll try it. As they go side by side through turn number 1. Oh, Sikorsky, nice exit there. But Crowther slides just a little bit, tries to get that lead. And here comes Evdaka too. He's going to try and pick whichever line that he wants to try and get maybe second or the lead here. And it's coming off of turn number 4, setting up for turn number 5, the right-hander. And now another tight braking zone. Crowther has that lead so far. Oh, Sikorsky getting nice and defensive through turn number 6 as Crowther goes just a little bit high. Look at how clogged it is. We're waiting for the cork to pop out, and now we see 4 or 5 cars involved in this battle.
Indeed, because James Boom is getting involved in P4 here, looking to make a move ahead of Michael Evdoka. That's contact, and that's Evdoka around. Oh, dear me. And that's Evdoka around. Drops down to P5. Luckily, does collect the car. Comes back on in P7. And James Boomy there went for a move, a little bit audacious, and unfortunately takes the car right with him. But here is Daniel McCauley still on the back of Boomy. What a race it's been for him so far.
Now, here's what's interesting, too, that we did not mention. You get bonus points for having the fewest incidents or having the fastest lap. You also get negative points depending on how many incident points you get. So it's amazing these drivers aren't really seeing that, Nathan, because we watch this replay and let's see who was at fault here. I would say, oh man, I hate to say, I think Boomy came up just a little bit too high there, and that's what took Evdaka basically out of the running.
Oh, and then he had a spin as well. So
again.
Dear me. Oh, what a shame there for Evdoka. Of course, I think once he got onto the grass, it cooled the tyres down or overheated them, I should say, and then got back on the power, and round he goes again. Big shame there, indeed, for Evdoka, as Ross McFarlane now up into P9. What a move.
Yeah, you're looking out the nose of Aiden Carter in the number 26. And we're watching this battle actually for the second spot between Sikorsky and Boomy. Boomy trying to get up to that pointy end of the grid as Crowther opening up a 1.3 second gap. And right behind Boomy, oh, is that a little wiggle on Sikorsky that I saw? That was a little interesting. But Sikorsky doing the best to hold off what is a fast charging contender for the Pro Championship, and that's James Boomy. Your points leader going into this race, Alexander Davidson, by the way, sitting in 7th place, trying to get around Pirinen, but still got a bit of a gap to go for that one. But look at Sikorsky, tip of the cap to this AM driver, as really took 45 minutes to hold off some fast pros there as Boomy gets around Sikorsky with ease, but Sikorsky says, I'm not done with you yet.
No, I'm sure Sikorsky is going to try his best to try and get back ahead of James Boomy. But of course, Crowther was hoping that Sikorsky could be ahead as long as possible, because look at that gap now, it's 2 seconds between our 2 leaders here. Crowther's had such a good start in this one and sits ahead of Boomy. Of course, Sikorsky still in that top 3. And Daniel McCauley, even though he dropped back to P4 around 5 minutes ago, still on the back of Franek Sikorsky. So a big battle here for the AM category as we head our way back down towards turn 1. And in terms of championship position for Sikorsky and McCauley, Sikorsky sits P2 on 102 points and McCauley on 93 back in P4. So it is a big race for these two. And of course, with Ben Ultria being pretty much out of this one, nowhere near the top spots, they do have both of them have a chance here to get ahead of Ben Ultria and try and go for that championship lead themselves.
Yeah, Healy Gray Tompkins already out of this race. Here's Dennis Grabowski. Look at that, up 24 spots on the Altitude Freem Esports Mustang. So great job there. And looks like we're starting to see pit stops as Lindbo is into the pits for a top-off. Interesting strategy, you know, packer full of fuel now and runner to the end.
Indeed, as we continue our way on, 44 minutes to go. Of course, Evelyn Moat, the first one to head into the pits for a stop, and Mendonca here, P20, starting 31st, has had a really good race so far here, looking to jump up into P19, looking to make some moves, just can't quite get ahead at the moment. So they make their way through. Of course, that's going to be Joe Coffin ahead of them. in the 136. And then, of course, still at the front. Look how quickly that gap came down between Crowther and Boomy. Already at a second here. Just shows the pace that Boomy has in that Mustang. And then, of course, Alexander Davidson, who was our winner last time out. P7 currently around 5 seconds back from the lead. So, still a great job. But, of course, being stuck behind a couple of cars ahead, definitely going to harm his progress when looking to try and battle here with James Boomy.
Crowther last time by 45.9, 45.3 out of Boomy, but still 1.2 seconds separate the two drivers. 1.1 really, if you're doing the math there on the circuits. We'll see if Crowther is anything for Boomy, if Boomy's just saving some time until his pit stop. Couple other drivers decide to go into the pits. Payne Wilkins and Mendonca also going for their first pit stop here, and then going around Vidal for 5th place. So we're starting to see some of the pit stops a little interesting. I know some of the front runners would wait till the last possible second to pit, but this battle here we're watching is between Aiden Carter, who is made their way into 12th place, and Adam Watson in the 291. Carter had a good start running in the top 10, now falling back just a little bit as Vidal and Davidson also going for a battle for 6th place, but that is out of class right there. Vidal in the Pro-Am Mustang looking a little racy and trying to hold back your pro points leader.
Certainly is, and of course in the championship standings, Vidal's nowhere near the top 5 currently, so this is a really good result if he can take that top spot on the podium for the Pro-Am category. As we continue our way on, of course, we should see a few more drivers head into the pits, and typically some of our drivers more near the front, they go a little bit later. Some who want to go for something different or a little bit further back tend to go in a little bit earlier for their pit stop, of course, going for some more fuel to have a longer run towards the end. But of course, they're going to suffer with those tyres a little bit more in those final stages of the race. As Ross McFarlane here looking to make a move ahead of Robin Glerham, and I think was it a slowdown for Glerham, because he pretty much lifted fully and Ross McFarlane went straight through.
Had to have been, yeah, because that was just way too easy for Glerham to just let McFarlane go past. Of course, now we're going to see McFarlane go into the pits. That's interesting. Or is that Davidson that went? It's Davidson that went in the pits. Okay, so this is an interesting bit of strategy here as Aiden Carter joins your pro points leader there, as we got a battle for position here between McCauley and Sikorsky. Again, this is not for the lead, but we saw these two go toe-to-toe here early part of this race for the overall lead. Right behind them is Purinen as well. I'm kind of puzzled by Davidson's choice to go into the pits, but maybe he's trying to go to the end and see if pitting early, going for the undercut, might work.
Oh, that's contact there. Ooh, I think that was McCauley hitting the back of Sikorsky.
Did Sikorsky have a slowdown there as well? That's interesting, as now Purinen has gotten around McCauley, trying to get around Sikorsky for 3rd overall.
Oh, that was a scary one, and that's going to be off the track for Pahonen as well. Off the circuit, has to rejoin a corner later. Of course, will end up dropping back behind McCauley and possibly even Vidal there, looking to try and jump up into P5 overall. But I think it was tactical there by Davidson to pit earlier, because we had Sikorsky, McCauley, Pahonen all ahead. There was no move that Davidson was going to make. He was just stuck there. So going in early, having a bit of clean air, being able to show your true pace could help him at the end when he's trying to battle with, hopefully, James Boomy, because the gap there between 2nd and 3rd on track is 5 seconds near enough, as Boomy's really on the back now of Harrison Crowther, so we could see a battle for the lead very, very shortly.
That'll be interesting as we see the teammate bump that we saw going into turn number 6. Oh, look at that. I'm wondering if Purinen kind of spooked McCauley there.
Yeah, could have been the case, because Purinen just came out of nowhere, didn't he? Heading into the hairpin at turn 6. And here are our 2 race leaders. Boomy and Crowther both in the same team, and I think Boomy just went past. I don't think there was any fight at all there from Harrison Crowther, as that's going to be Robin Glerham there up into P7. Another great comeback in this race for Robin, ahead of Tommy Vidal, and next will be Joe Petrig looking to make a move as Ross McFarlane goes ahead of Matthias Pahonen, loses 2 places. So is it a slowdown there for Matthias? I think it's got to be, hasn't it? Because here comes Petrig.
Oh, what a good move there by Petri to get around Piran in fourth position. Vidal also getting up there. So lots of dancing here in the back half of the top 10. Yeah, and you got to hand it to Galerum. First race weekend here with WSR this season, and the Williams Esport driver really looking nice and tidy here in the beginning part of this race as pit stops well underway. More drivers coming in. Samways, Archer falling back, but they're now out. And a little bit of a agricultural move there from Watson in the 291. Watson having a teammate back there in Piran. So the altitude drivers on the top half of the top 10 and the bottom half as well.
Indeed, as we have 38 minutes to go in this race. Oh, Sikorsky. Well, that's a bit of a touch, I think, to the back of no, sorry, that would be Macaulay. Sorry, in the back of Sikorsky there. As they make their way through, and still, this battle is not over. These lot have been battling ever since the first lap. 20 minutes of battling for Macaulay and Sikorsky, and you can see there Daniel just finding any way to go in that 21, just can't get ahead of Franek Sikorsky. Down to turn 1 we go, and now Ross McFarlane is going to have a go at trying to jump up into P3 ahead of these two who are battling for the lead of their category. Into turn 1 we go, Sikorsky to the inside defending that one. To the outside goes Macaulay, just trying to get a run into turn 2. He's not quite alongside, and here goes Ross McFarlane.
No surprise, the WSR Mustang dispatches of one AM driver, sets its sights on another. And the thing that worries me about the Sikorsky-Macaulay battle, the way they've been going at each other for the past 20 minutes, obviously it's been off and on, but Nathan, I fear this is going to come into blows at some point because they've been rough with each other, and there's going to be the red mist that's going to kick in with these two.
Oh yeah, it certainly will do. It's going to get interesting. I think that's safe to say. It's going to get personal, but that's what we love when we see our drivers fighting for race wins, or hopefully in the future fighting for championships here in this series. It's always going to be some personal vendettas between our drivers. As further back, we do see Joe Petrick on the back of Robin Glarham for P6 here, as Sikorsky yet again. Bit of a tail swipe as he heads out of turn number 10. Not been too ideal for him in that aspect, as here goes Ross McFarlane to the outside looking to make a move.
Something's happened to Anders Meyer. He's back in 40th. Looks like it might be out of the race. That's not a good showing for the driver who we expected big things from this weekend, but again, it's only one race, a race that happened an issue. There goes McFarlane around Sikorsky, and that backs up Sikorsky to Macaulay once again. Question on the YouTube chat: what are Davidson's times compared? We assumed a Boomy. I'm trying to find Davidson here. I know Boomy's running a 45.8. And of course, Davidson just coming out of the pits running a 45.9, so they're very similar, as it looks like Glarham is now in the pits as well. So Glarham will lose that top 10 position as we're watching McFarlane. And look at this, Sikorsky and Macaulay both going to the inside as Sikorsky's trying to chop off Macaulay's chance at making a dive into turn 1.
Certainly is. I think that was Jacques Seaver there making a move up into P10, as there is Sikorsky and Macaulay battling once again. And this time Macaulay gets the better of Sikorsky. It's taken a while for Daniel Macaulay to find that move, but after nearly half an hour, does get that move done and sits ahead, and he's in the lead of the AM category. Deep there for Franek. That allows Joey Petrick to go for a move possibly up into P5 for him, and maybe now a little bit of pressure has gotten to Franek Sikorsky. Maybe a bit of head loss in that McLaren, and now started to lose a bit of position.
Edgecock into the pits as well as Franek. Yeah, that's one has to wonder. I believe they're in the same team, correct?
Don't know. Well, they're in the same car, but not sure if it's the same livery. Might be.
It looks like an opposite color livery, but then again, we've seen some stranger things happen. But it's interesting to see Petrick make their move up there. There's Arthur Thurtle. We haven't seen Thurtle in the top 10 in quite some time, as catches up to teammate in the number 41, Dennis Grabowski. So that is a pro battle right there for the 8th spot, as Grabowski making huge moves here in this race. That Mustang is all hooked up.
It certainly is. It's a nice little machine, isn't it, that Mustang? A very, very competitive car. I think probably the best car we've got here this evening, because most of our leaders are in that car. The top 4 all in a Mustang, and then P5 being Petrick and P6 Sikorsky in a McLaren here, as we head our way back down towards turn number 1. But in terms of lap times, as we've seen, at the moment it is only Boomy, only Boomy, which is quicker than Davidson. Davidson is so quick currently. Lots of pace in that car. Of course, went in a little bit earlier, fueled up a little bit more, and looking to run to the end, as I think we do see Ben Altria and Brian Loynes both into the pit lane.
Yeah, they've taken their pit stops. They're in the pit box right now as the timer's going on as Ultra hits his mark. Same with Loynes. We'll see how long it takes for them to get out as Petrig trying to close in on Macaulay, your AM leader right now. We really haven't talked too much about the Pro-Ams either. You got to go back to 11th, where Jonathan Walker right now is your Pro-Am leader in the number 88 altitude-free esports Mr. Hedge Mustang. So very strange to see somebody else in the lead over like a Guthrie or a Muska there in the Pro-Am class.
Indeed, and I mean, Muska's had such a good race. I presume hasn't pitted yet because he's in P13, started last in 43rd. So what a race it's been by Muska. If he's not pitted, this is definitely a race to remember for a very, very long time for him. So we do continue our way on. And then, of course, we do see as well Paul Smith in 19th place. So in that top 20 for Paul Smith, great for him. As here is a battle, Grabowski ahead of Sikorsky. Into P7 for Grabowski, who also had a bit of a poor race one after making contact on lap 1, up into the top 7.
Yeah, the one thing that really stinks about having the driver, the pit in right there on the exit of the corner is you kind of think, oh, they're going to the pits. Oh, wait, no, they're not, because you're kind of second guessing who's going to go into the pits and when. Of course, behind them, they've got Arthur Thurtle, who's, again, quietly sitting there in 9th place, so waiting for something to happen. Would not be surprised to see Thurtle into that 8th place here in just a little bit, but big gap there. Look at that gap between Crowther and McFarland. It's about 8 seconds. Oh, that's a little nice battle there for 32nd. You got Loynes, Samways, Mendonca, and Roberts going at each other, and Andy Archer falling back just a little bit after a little bit of a failed attempt at a pass, but this is a great battle here between 5 drivers. Ooh.
That was a close one. That was nearly a spin and an out for a couple of drivers there. As Robin Glarham is in the pit lane as well in the 116. We'll be dropping all the way down to around 32nd place. And here we go, back down towards turn number 1. Let's see who's going to make moves here. The number 11, that being Phil Samways on the back of Brian Loynes. Going to look to go to the outside into the braking zone. And then, of course, behind them is Mendonca. Around the outside goes Phil Samways up into P31 ahead of Brian Loynes, who now has... Oh, that's, I think, John Roberts.
Yeah, Roberts with a spin right there for 35th, and got to go off course. Of course, also interesting to see Loynes slow down as well. Might have had a slowdown penalty. And trying to think, is this the first? I thought Glarham came into the pits a little bit earlier on.
I did think so as well, because he's like at 38th. Should be nowhere near that if who's making his first stop. So maybe it's out of the race here for Glarham, possibly.
It might be because he's at a 43-second pit stop, so we'll keep tabs on that one, as you see on your tower right there. For just going into the 40, so not a good showing for the second race for the William Esports driver. There's James Boomy, 3 seconds ahead of Harrison Crowther. What a climb for the number 28, as came from 23rd all the way up to the front, and there's Thurtle going around Sikorsky. So no surprise here, Thurtle just quietly making his way up to the front. You're on board with Sikorsky, the Project 91 Academy team. I gotta say, you know what, half the race into the top 10 overall on merit. Didn't have to wait for drivers to pit. Nathan, I've got to say, this is a fantastic showing out of this Sam driver.
Certainly is, and the same goes for Macaulay as well in P4. You know, he doesn't look out of place at all in that 4th spot, battling with our pros. Jacques Saver as well, really good race from them. Of course, they sit P1, 2 and 3, the 21, the 75 and the 45 in their RAM class. And then, of course, in the Pro-Ams, currently it is Jonathan Walker, Eric Muska, and then William Guthrie, but I think a couple of those still have to pit, so things could change. I'm sure that we will see... where is he? I'm trying to find Tommy Vidal. He's in 24th, so I'm sure once the others pit, he'll go back up in towards that top 15 again.
Vince Cussy on YouTube says Glarum was pretty badly damaged. So, yeah, would not be surprised to see Glarum not come back out as Byron Crawford actually put a lap on Glarum, still sitting in the pit. So, yeah, it might be race over for the number 116. Sikorsky now letting Thurtle get away just a little bit. Jox Eva, though, the next position in the AM category. A little bit further back, but still in the top 10 there. Eva trying to hold off Jonathan Walker there for position. And Joe Coffin not too far away either. So there's your battle for 10th place between Eva, Walker, and Coffin. It's an AM, Pro-Am, and battle there.
It certainly is, as they all make their way through on this next lap of the race. 29 minutes to go here, just over halfway in this race, as there's a bit of dust thrown up there, so I'm not sure if someone's run a little bit wide earlier on. But a nice little battle here for P9, 10 and 11 as Brent Gregory there is into the pits. So that's a bit of contact. That's Adam Watson round. And I was going to say earlier on, Adam Watson had a good start. He's now P9, but of course losing a lot of time there, and that is certainly not what he would have been hoping for.
No, Watson just wants to get. I think he wants to get out of the bend and just forget that this race ever happened. Because not a good couple of races for him.
No, I think a few drivers have struggled a little bit more than they was hoping. Because of course, I think a lot of drivers knew it's a bit difficult. It's a brand new track, and they've got to get everything sorted out and be at some good pace. But it's just been a failure for some, hasn't it? It's not got off the ground at all, and that's a car round. I'm not sure who that is.
We'll find out here as they fall back into position. But yeah, one car spinning, and that's Mushka. Mushka with the up 28 spots still, but regardless, not a good showing out of the Mustang driver. Let's see, Up just did it on his own with the back end. Let's see what the front end's looking at sometimes.
Yeah, it's not been good, has it, for Mushka? Of course, already good beginning to the championship. Yeah, P5 in the category, the Pro-Ams, 116 points. But today it's just been, yeah, the first race, 43rd, finished, and this race it'll be near the back once again, I think, currently. Yes, it's right at the back, so what a shame for Eric Musker, especially after a decent start as well, got up to the top 13 as we continue our way on. And then, of course, at the front, James Boomey just checked out 4.5 seconds to his teammate Harrison Crowther, who I think has made a bit of a mistake there, has just lost 3/4 tenths. And then, of course, Ross McFarlane, 11 seconds back, so I think Ross knows hasn't got the pace, but still can finish in the top 3. So just, don't push too much. Just have a decent pace and just keep consistent.
Jaffa into the pits for their first pit stop. As we're watching this battle between Eva, Walker, and Coffin once again. They've been close most of the race. Guthrie not too far behind either, so trying to capitalize on this battle. As you see now, Guthrie starting to add into the picture. Beeridge into the pits as well for their pit stop. Still waiting for the front runners, and I'm wondering if Boomey's just trying to get a good delta. Now, the delta that you need for a pit stop is about 44 seconds. That includes time in and out of the pits and a pit stop. If he were to pit now, that would dump him off around 17th, 18th, put him somewhere around where Martin Toth and Paul Smith are. Great showing by Smith in the top 20. Really happy to see that. But Boomey's really gaining this lead right now, Nathan. So One has to wonder if he's setting himself up for a pit stop later on.
It's got to be, because I thought originally Davidson pitting earlier was hoping to kind of get the better of Boomey, but as soon as Boomey got ahead of Harrison Crowther, he's been able to put the pace down just as much as Davidson has, and that gap would be around 6 seconds once Boomey exits out the pits. So such a good race for him, and Davidson tried something but it just hasn't worked, as that's going to be Joe Coffin there looking to make a move and get ahead of the McLaren as they make their way through. 25 minutes to go in this race. We're on lap 20 now with roughly 35 here, and of course we have still our top, that'd be top 17 and Paul Smith to pit. Everybody else down and below has made their pit stop, so it's also going to be interesting to see where the likes of McFarlane, McCauley, Petrick, where they come out here, because they're around 13 seconds back, so they're going to come out in and around Vidal and Evdoka. So that's going to be interesting. We're going to have a good battle between those guys, I think, here.
No, we're really having a great battle between those guys right now. As oh, look at that pass on the inside. Looks like a little bit of defense out of the full tilt Mustang. Man, this is just some great battling here, as it looks like Hoffin's going to fall back into the clutches right now of Guthrie, as Patty Falconer really falling back just a little bit, 5 seconds behind this battle right here, as Walker trying to do all he can to keep Guthrie and Coffin behind him.
Indeed, as we continue our way on, down in towards 24 minutes to go here. So I'm just trying to see who we're on board with. I'm losing track of the drivers here. It sometimes becomes a little bit difficult to see who you're on board with as we make our way through. You're going to have to give me a bit of a tap here, Jeremy. Who are we on board with? I can't read the number.
I believe we're on board with Guthrie. There it is. Yep. Oh, all right. Guthrie really looking pretty good, up 4 positions, but those are 4 hard-fought positions that Guthrie has had to go around. Of course, slicing and dicing left and right, trying to get around. Oh, Walker! That's going to be, they'll be the battle for the Pro-Am lead right there, as he taps Walker just a little bit, tries to go around the inside to turn at number 3, but Nathan, oh, this might be Guthrie's chance. Let's hang with him here on the Coffin, watching this battle with gusto. And of course, this could be the past 4 position and the Pro-Am lead in turn 6. They're side by side. Guthrie, oh, a little bit of a nudge there to the side, but move Guthrie up to the lead in Pro-Am, 11th place overall.
Indeed, a nice move there from Guthrie up into P11 ahead of Walker, and now Joe Coffey could also look to make a move here to get ahead of Jonathan Walker. We'll make our way through then towards turn 12, and been a decent race here for Joe Coffin as well. Started down in P36, has made 23 spots in this race, as Paul Smith has also just entered into the pit lane. Will come out around, I think, P33, P34. So we continue our way on, and on the last couple of laps, some brilliant lap times being set here by James Boom. He matches pretty much his fastest lap time of the race, a 45.2, set to 45.4 next lap around. And then in terms of Alex Davidson, a 45.6. So they are within a couple of tenths of each other. But every time that Boomy brings that gap down by a couple of tenths, 5 laps later it's a second. So this is really good here by James Boomy. He's got 7 seconds over Crowther, 13 seconds over Ross McFarlane. It's still here Joe Coffin looking to close down on Jonathan Walker.
Interesting to note, too, that Davidson, the highest placing driver who has pitted, up to 18th. But yeah, I'm just looking at the gap, looking at the delta, and unless Boomy goes for a short fill or has a bobble in the pit stop, this is going to be basically his race to lose, because he'll come out ahead of Alex Davidson. Yeah,
easily. I think by probably around 7 seconds here. The gap's 52 seconds between Boomy and Davidson. So yeah, this has been a really good drive by Boomy, setting himself up perfectly for a nice finish. Of course, it should be a relatively short pit stop because there's only 20 minutes to go, and I presume we'll probably go for another 3 or 4 laps possibly before entering into the pit lane. And then, of course, Crowther, McFarlane, Macaulay, all those are all doing the same strategy as well. They still yet to pit in, so they've gone for a big overcut here compared to most of the field. And still, Daniel Macaulay, what a race it has been by him. I know he's under pressure here from Joe Petrick, but isn't that far behind Ross McFarlane, who, remember, finished I think was got a podium back in Fuji, P5 in the standings in the Pro overall, and Macaulay's only a second back from him. What a race it's been by Daniel Macaulay, and the only one in the top 10 to not have lost positions if they've been up in the top 10 at the start.
Well, look at Grabowski on your tower, up 36 spots. Macaulay and Grabowski have a day. Regardless of where you come out in the pits, you gotta hang your hat on great races out of both of these drivers for what was essentially an inverted top half of the grid. So that made things just a little bit more interesting. Petri closing in on Macaulay, and Macaulay just. What else is there to say right now?
Yeah, brilliant job. Brilliant drive. And I think at the moment, if Petrick does get alongside Macaulay, there's probably no point Macaulay fighting him, because is it worth it to ruin what could be a brilliant race? If they get into contact, that's going to make Macaulay's day so bad. So I presume it's just a matter of, if he gets alongside me, let him through. He's probably quicker, as Petrick has made some brilliant moves so far in this race, as we do see Muscat and Byron Crawford now into the pit lane. They're making their pit stops from 18th and 38th. So yeah, I think that's started to tell us that the top 10 probably will be looking to pit in the next couple of laps here. 19 minutes to go, 40 minutes gone in this race, just a third left here.
Anushka Simnor into the pits as pit stops winding down with under 20 minutes left to go. Anushka with a 15.4 second pit time, which is interesting as we're seeing Petri go around Macaulay. And I'm thinking Boomy's going to have to pit here in the next couple of laps and just short fill. We'll see if that strategy works out. I know the closest short fill is Elliot Roberts in 23rd spot.
Yep, so he's got to.
Yeah, he's got to be careful there.
Yeah, definitely. It's here with Jacques Siva in 11th, 32 seconds back from the leader. Of course, yet again, a brilliant drive from him. And I think the good thing for our drivers is, as we do see Joey Petri again, is that the positions that they started in this race were like, what, top 15? They're never realistically going to be there. So for them, any result in the top, I'd say, 20 is good. So they're not going to put that much pressure on themselves. They're not going to have many expectations. And that's really helped them because they're not in a situation where they're fighting to go forward. They're just trying to stick where they are and just keep a consistent pace. And so far, the three of them have done such a good job.
We really have, with Adam Watson into the pits. You also see Martin Toth coming in as well. So, going to be interesting to see what happens here. Now with the Delta, if Boomy goes for a full pit stop, as we see here, what does he do? He could come out ahead of Tom Griffiths, who has yet to pit here, as Boomy on track right now, setting up for the back half of the circuit. That's just such an interesting, and heading into turn number 17, he'll come shortly. And two right-handers left here, the tight one, and now setting up for pit straight in just a little bit. See a couple of slow cars, so one has to wonder if he's just going to come in and avoid traffic off of turn number 18. What does the leader do? Stays out on track.
Well, he might as well stay out. He's got no reason to pit unless his fuel is low, and that's contact. That was a bit of net code, unfortunately. And that's Jonathan Walker rained after contact there with Jacques Siva. Joe Coffin jumps up into that top 10. And what a shame there for Jonathan Walker. What a start it was for him in this race, as we do see Prother and McFarlane and Macaulay all head into the pits, and still Boomy and Grabowski stay out one more lap.
Well, Grabowski is about 18 seconds behind Boomy. Boomy just opening up a big can of hurt right now, as everybody now who was behind them really starting to come in the pits. You got Macaulay, Crowther, McFarlane, Sikorsky, Guthrie, Eva, Coffin, Faulkner, Walker now coming into the pits. Does Griffiths come in? Yes, Griffiths comes in as well. So that will move Davidson into the top 5. But one has to wonder what's going to happen here in these pit stops. I'm very interested, as that Delta has gone down just a little bit to about 30, it's still 44, 45 seconds as these drivers are taking full pit stops. So let's see what happens here. About 16 minutes left to go. I would imagine that Boomy would have to take a shorter stop as we see this netcode issue. And yeah, that was just netcode with Walker. Nothing he could do.
Now, a big shame there for Jonathan Walker in the number 88, as here we do see Alexander Davidson, of course, very quiet in this race, pitted very early on, I think around 25 minutes ago. Went into the pit lane and has been continuing all the way to the end here, 51 seconds away from our race leader, James Boomy, who still has to pit, but either way, it should be a P2 here for Davidson. P3 as well on the cards here for Harrison Crowther. Here comes our race leader. Let's see, what's he going to do in the pit lane? It's got to be less than 52 seconds.
And, of course, like I said, it's going to take a bobble in the pits for that to happen. And, of course, drivers, you can even take a 15-second pit stop like Petrick did and still be 47 seconds Delta time. Of course, you see that time really going down. Grabowski into the pits. His third will stay out for a lap, or is he going to come into the pits and finish off this pit cycle? Oh, boy, is this going to be very interesting here as we see Boomy. 12 seconds, 12.5-second pit stop. Oh, that's it. that is it. Is Boomy. What a fast pit stop out of that number 28 team. Here comes Davidson around the final corner, and it's just going to be too little too late, as now straightaway separates first from second place.
Indeed, that gap will be around, what, 7-8 seconds here. There we are, 8.2 seconds between those two. What a drive by James Boomy, and Crowther as well up into that top three after a poor Fuji evening. It's nice to see him up onto the podium. Ross McFarlane as well up into the top four. And Grabowski net P5 here after starting right at the back of the field. What a race it has been for him.
Payne Wilkins gets around Throttle, who just comes out of the pits. Aiden Carter up to 12th place, and that's where we've seen Carter right there. So trying to get around Throttle, who's still trying to come up to speed right now. Around turn number 3 and into setting up for 4. It's Lamborghini ahead of Porsche, which behind them looks like I believe that's going to be Adam Watson there in the 13th spot. Oh, look at the glow there on the Lamborghini. A little touch there. Not sure if that was netcode, but Carter and Watson making their way through as Thordahl straightens up and now has to deal with Sikorsky, the earlier race leader. Indeed,
as they were making their way through. And just a bit of a rundown quickly before we get to the final 10 minutes of the race of who's sitting where in category. The top 3 in the pros is James Boomy, Alexander Davidson and Harrison Crowther. In the pro-ams, it's the leading position for Aiden Carter here, ahead of William Guthrie and then Tommy Vidal. And then in the AMs, it's Dan McCauley ahead of Jesse Payne Wilkins. And then in third, it's Franek Sikorsky.
Watching this battle, and it seems like turn 6 has been the problem child all day, as Sikorsky trying to get around, or hold off, I should say, Guthrie in the Mustang. Right under that rear wing here, that is for the 14th position. It's an AM Pro AM Battle, but still overall positions matter here as well in WSR. You're on board with Guthrie, watching this battle really unfold here down the front straightaway with about 12.5 minutes left.
Indeed, if we continue our way on, let's see, is there going to be a move here? My Guthrie looking to close in, and you can just see there, car ahead, brakes later, Sikorsky is not going to let him through. And from what we saw in the first, I'd say, 30 minutes when Sikorsky was right up at the front and in that top 5, he was not letting anybody through. So we know he's got good defence in that McLaren, can, just plant the car to the inside of a corner, and certainly will make this a pain here for Guthrie.
Yep, there he goes. Guthrie going around the inside, going to slide up. Will the overcut happen? No, as Guthrie gets that position over Sikorsky. And Sikorsky really thinking, you know what, discretion's a better part of value, might be faster than me, but I don't want to end up sideways in turn 6, which we've seen so many. I think we've seen less drivers not ending up sideways in 6 today than we have seen them drift through there.
Indeed, as we continue our way on, and 11 minutes to go in this one. It's been a really good race so far, really interesting, lots of battles going on. I think for me a little bit more carnage than I expected here in race 2. I expected it to be a little bit quieter, but we've had so much going on in this last 30-40 minutes here in this race. And Paul Smith, we can see there for a moment, 31st. I think started 41st there, so 10 positions made for Paul Smith. As there's a move, that's Ross McFarlane. What's happened to Harrison Crowther?
That's not good. Not sure if there's a little bit of contact there, but Crowther falling down to 7th place. We'll get a replay on that here shortly, but that is not something you want to see. Crowther had such a good race going on as, this self-inflicted. Yes, it is. Oh, just pain, horror, tragedy there in the closing stages of the races. Crowther's looking at a fantastic finish in the Pro Series, and Petrik goes around Pirinen for position. You saw that there. Let's see if Pirinen can get around Petrik once again. Gonna shove his way into the inside, move him back up to the top 5 as Pirinen holds off Petrik. It's Ford over McLaren.
Indeed, what a move there as we continue our way on. Great battle in him. Perhonen ahead of Petrik as they continue their way through, and still Petrik not going to let this one go. The number 97 as they make their way through. 10 minutes to go in this race, so there's not long to be making these moves, and Matthias Pohonen's had a really good race himself, has made a few positions since the start of this one. Same goes for Grabowski, McFarlane, Davidson, Boomy as well. Everybody up into that top 10 bar. I think Macaulay have all made some big moves here in this one. But of course, a big shame for Harrison Crowther, who was up in the podium positions quite comfortably and has given that one to Ross McFarlane, who of course took a podium as well last time out in Fuji in race number 2. So race 2 a podium, race 4 could be a podium here for Ross McFarlane. And then Dennis Grabowski, 38 positions made here, started last. He's now up into the top 4. I think that's got to be, if he stays there, driver of the evening by country mile, in my opinion.
It's going to be interesting also to see at the end of the day how the bonus and penalty points shake out, because look, you take a look at the top 2 in pro, and those 2 drivers, Boomy and Davidson, they are just the class of the field right now. They'll hold on to first and second, but who's going to be where is going to be interesting as we see Petri going around the long way on Pyronen, as Pyronen trying to hold off the battle for 5th spot. Not too far away, you've got Macaulay, Crowther, and Abdaka all sitting there as the interested spectators. Vidal goes in for a second pit stop, so that's interesting to see in the number 37. But Pyronen able to use that American muscle to kind of get away from the McLaren just a little bit. But turn 6 is where the number 97 is able to gain so much time.
Certainly is, and it's just, we can see so in so many different corners over this race where different cars are better. And you know, through this section here, we do see a lot from the Mustang, but the McLaren keeps with them then on the straights. That's where the McLaren does sometimes have a bit of a chance here as we make our way through. 8 minutes to go in this race. And I've got to say as well, another mention for Jesse Payne Wilkins was, I don't think, in the top 10 at the start of this one, and now he's comfortably in P10 currently. Great race for them. But then of course here we still have this battle for P5 and 6, and then of course Daniel Macaulay, he started to get in here to this battle. So if things start to go a little bit hostile between Pohonen and Petrik, we could see Macaulay enter the battle. And I think either way, for an AM driver to finish 7th, that is a result, especially over a 1 hour race, and to be currently only 27 seconds back from the leader, who has just been an alien in this one, has been insane, as Abdoka gets past Harrison Crowther for P8.
Well, to touch up on a point, Vidal was in the pits, looks like for a pass-through for incident points. Is no pit stop, but just a pass-through. Once again, looking out the back of Pyronen is Petrik. Now going to try to look to the inside. Whoo, that was a little questionable move, but nonetheless still side by side for that 5th spot, as Petrik has it for the time being. But Pyronen has the line going into turn 3, rub through 3, as right now the Mustang gets out in front. So Pyronen ahead of Petrik for the time being. They'll work their way around turn number 5, heading into 6, where Petrik will have that advantage. He's been behind most of the time through 6, but look at them two. I'll just rubbing off each other, just leading through turn number 6. And a little bit of a bump from Petrik, and says, you know what, this is my spot. But Pyronen says, not so fast.
Great racing here by these guys. Slight bits of contact here and there, but it's fair. It's good at racing here for P5 in this race. And then of course Macaulay is closing in. He's hoping something happens here, because this could be a result and a half for Daniel Macaulay if it could be a top 5 finish. Of course, we got Michael Abdoka as well, who's got some good pace in that 989. He's also looking to close in. Here comes Petrik once again on the back of Pohonen. Once again, nearly close to contact between the two. And you could just see Petrik now starting to get a little bit impatient, isn't he, on the back of Matthias Pohonen as they head their way through into the final few corners. 6 minutes to go here, so probably 4 or 5 laps maximum in this one. And Petrik is on the charge, but just can't get a move and just can't sit solid ahead of Matthias Pohonen, who's doing a brilliant job in that Mustang.
Of course, sitting back there, we didn't expect this at the end of the day. Daniel Macaulay in position to kind of get in this fight for the top 5. As we're watching on board, he's just the interested spectator. What a fantastic showing out of the AM driver. And of course, another AM driver who sits in the top 10 is a 355 of Jesse Payne Wilkins. So great to see them two work their way on aggregate. Your Pro-Am leader is your defending AM champion, Aiden Carter. Good to see them up there in 11th. But, you know, normally we say, oh, they're in 11th, but there's another Pro-Am driver ahead of them. No, Aiden Carter right now, your Pro-Am leader. But we're still watching on board with Daniel Macaulay, and he just seems calm, cool, and collected here with about 5 minutes left.
Indeed, and ahead there you can see once again battles evolving, and that's Macaulay getting through on 1, that's Macaulay getting through on 2. What a move. Daniel Macaulay up into the top 5, but Pahonen has a decent line as they make their way through turn 7 through towards turn number 11. Let's see, can Pahonen get back up the inside? Yes, he can. So does Petrig, and that's going to allow Evdoka to go to the outside, nearly too wide, and through goes Evdoka on Macaulay. What a battle we've got here, P5 to P8.
I thought we were going to see 3 wide there. Looks like Piran and Petrig get into one another through turn number 6. And now we see Evdoka trying to look to the inside of Petrig, get in those mirrors of that McLaren through the corner. But nonetheless, everybody kind of dancing quite nicely. Macaulay has a little bit of a gap between he and Jesse Payne Wilkins there for that AM lead. Bud Crowther all over the back of the AM Mustang. And we see Evdoka flashing his lights, getting around the slower traffic, and they're going to move out of the way. Discretion's a better part of valor, but a little bit of a traffic jam here heading into turn number 18 as another lap is complete. Of course, we've said Boomy with a commanding lead over Alexander Davidson, but this battle for 5th place still heating up as we see Petrig trying to use that lap car as a pick. A little bit of a lead there between Petrig and Piiranen. No love lost between the two of them as Piiranen goes for just a little bit of a jump on the apex curbing in turn 1.
Yeah, and Petrig goes ahead once again into P5. Goes Joe Petrig with 3.5 minutes to go. Not many laps left in this one. And we can see as well Michael Evdoka now on the back of Matthias Pahonen. This could be a move here. The number 989 up the inside in towards the hairpin. That's going to be late on the brakes. Can he get ahead? Going to push Pahonen a little bit wide. They're still going to carry it side by side onto the grass slightly for Matthias Pahonen. They still continue side by side through turn 7. And I think that's a move done. It is Evdoka into P6.
You know, I thought there for a second that Evdoka would have had a quote-unquote soft pedal to try and pass 2 into 1, but he does not. Thinks better of it. We're watching as Macaulay catches up to Piiranen once again. This is for the battle for 7th place, but Evdoka 0.6 of a second behind Petrig. This battle's not over here as I would believe we're going to have 2 laps to go once Boomy comes across the line, but this is about a 0.5 second back from that battle as look at this. Just everybody just battling for every inch that they can get as Evdoka has to hold off Piiranen and Macaulay.
Doesly so. And see, we do, of course, see a brilliant onboard here from Daniel Macaulay. Got up into P5 and then 10 seconds later down to P8, unfortunately. As we continue our way on. 2 minutes to go here. Not long to go before we conclude this race. And what a race it's been so far. Of course, the top 3 have just been quiet for the past 15 minutes. They're just running their own races. Boomy ahead of Davidson, ahead of McFarlane. And then this is a real battle. P5 down to P8 here between Petrig, Evdoka, Pahonen and Macaulay as they all make it in towards turn 1. And then, of course, in the background, we do see Crowther and Payne Wilkins as well, rounding off that top 10. But I don't think I would have had on my bingo card that we'd have 2 AM drivers in the top 10 by the end of this one.
No, I mean, this honestly is more mayhem than Fuji 2 last week. So no surprise here that we're seeing just some strange things happen in this hour race. But this has just been absolutely fantastic. Piiranen trying to stay on the back of Evdoka, but things have kind of calmed down for that battle for 5th place as Petrig has just opened up about a 1 second gap and leaving the rest of those competitors in the dust. So that McLaren finally coming to life with the Mustangs of Evdoka, Piiranen, and Macaulay. Even Crowther sitting back there in 9th place, looking really, really good. Again, really a surprise here to see those 2 AM drivers of Macaulay and Payne Wilkins. A kind of pleasant surprise to see them up in the top 10.
Indeed, a great job by those 2. Brilliant workers. Who's that behind? Is that Crowther possibly?
That might have been Crowther that went off course.
Yeah, well, someone went off, and unfortunately that's not ideal for them. And I think it was Harrison Crowther. That's still P9, but there is Jesse Payne Wilkins, I think, behind.
Yeah, looking at the aggregate gap, no, may not be Jesse Payne. There might be a lap car behind, but nonetheless, white flag is out. We'll be out here shortly. If it's not out already for Boomy, yeah, it's going to be out because it's the final lap that Boomy's going to work. 9.5 seconds gap between he and Davidson, and really, he's got everybody's number in the second race.
Yeah, definitely, and it's just been an insane drive here by James Boomey. 9.5 seconds ahead of Alexander Davidson, and I mean that says something because Davidson in race 1 flying. Race 2 also was really quick. Race 2 has been quick so far, but Boomey's 9.5 seconds ahead of him. I mean, that's the difference we see sometimes between drivers in different classes, never mind between the top 2 contenders.
Yeah, no, definitely. As you know, it's just been a fantastic showing out of Boomey. He's finished no worse than second here in any of, well, no worse than top 5, I should say, no worse than second today, but almost over a 9-second lead that he has over Davidson, up 22 spots. He saw where he was starting for today's race and thought, you know what, I think we can do it. Darn near made it his way into the top 5 at this race, but he'll come around down the front straightaway, and he will take the checkered flag. It's a race win for James Boomey, the second one on the season for the Altitude Free Esports Mustang driver. We're also watching for the leader in AM, and that is Daniel McCauley. You're on board, as like we said, he's calm, cool, collected as he makes his way into the back part of the circuit. I've got to say, him up at the front has been nothing short of amazing. Hit the brakes, hang a right, and head down the pit straightaway. It'll be an 8th place finish, but more importantly, an AM win for Daniel McCauley. Now we wait for our Pro-Am leader, Aiden Carter, as they make their way across the line, and that title defense turns into a win. The Owned Racing driver is your winner in the Pro-Am class.
Indeed, what a race we've got there. There's still a few more to cross the line, and that's, I think, William Guthrie losing 8 positions on the last lap, having a spin, and I think a bit of damage on the front of that Mustang. He will come over and cross the line as well. Not be the best race here for William Guthrie, considering what we saw in Fuji. And let's see what happens into turn 1. Oh my, that was a big jump onto 2 wheels for a moment and collecting. Not sure who that was, because there's about 10 cars with that livery on the grid, I swear.
Holy cow, that was something. And then just loses it there, so not a good couple of laps for the number 36, and almost gets hit again. Of course, that's a blind exit for those drivers, as they're coming with the head of steam around that corner.
Indeed, and there we go. Still a few more cars left just to cross the line, conclude their race. Well, I mean, that was chaotic. I mean, I've never seen this track before until about an hour ago. No, 3 hours ago. There we go. I forgot how long we've been on the broadcast. Dear me. Yeah, didn't know what the track was. Heard of it. Didn't know much about it. And believe me, I want to come back again. What a race we had.
You know, somebody on the chat said, I want to see this in person. I would love to see
definitely
a GT3 race in person, or even a supercars race. But here's your finishing order. It's James Boomey, followed by Alexander Davidson, then Ross McFarland. So WSR Esports, in spite of having their difficulties, finished 2 and 3 and even 6, because you got Grabowski, Petrick, you got to go back to 6 with Evdaka. Then appearing in your AM leader, Daniel McCauley, there with Harrison Crowther and Jesse Payne-Wilkins. A great showing out of them in the top 10.
Indeed, and the next we have Aiden Carter, winner of the Pro-Am category in the 26 Lamborghini, ahead of Arthur Thurtle, Marley Yoff in 13th, and then Adam Watson 14th, ahead of Franek Sikorsky in P3, in the AM category, ahead of Joe Coffin, Phil Samways, Ben Altria, who made a really good comeback from near the rear of the grid, ahead of Andy Archer, and then Patrick Falconer, the top 20.
Yoffie the fastest lap, also the race, 45.081 in lap 6. Brian Loynes sits in 21st. That's Mushka, Tom Griffiths, William Guthrie, Jacques Eva, then Hakan Aidi, Linmo, Mendonca, Vidal, Walker, and Benjamin Gregory still in the top, on the lead lap in 30th.
Indeed, and then to round off the grid, the final car on the lead lap was Paul Smith in 31st, ahead of Elliot Roberts, Adam Hedgecock, Lee Barrage, John Roberts, Dickie Simnor, Byron Crawford, Martin Toth, Robin Glerum, and then Anders Meyer at the top 40. And I believe that Glerum, Meyer, and then we of course got Healy, Gray and Tompkins, who all did not make the finish in that one. A big shame there for Michael Gray. I think he was, you know, after last week, I think, yeah, top in the standings, did not really want to go into this race with a DNF.
yeah, no, you definitely don't want to do that. As we're back here in the broadcast center, Nathan, this, I think, was an absolutely fantastic race in and of itself, partially because this is a newer track to the facility, but partially because it's a very technical track.
Yeah, indeed. It's such a technical track. I mean, a lot of it is about just carrying so much speed through the corners, a lot of mid and high speed corners. And it's just about knowing where to place the car, but also when you're battling, we've seen how difficult it is to go side by side and how often cars get pushed a little bit wide or someone gets tapped on the rear. It was definitely a challenge for our drivers. I mean, some of them are probably hoping we never come back here again. I mean, I don't think James Boomey's too bothered. I think he'll be happy to come back to the Bend. But I think for racing, I didn't expect as much as we got. I thought after watching it, I thought, oh, it's going to be a bit boring because there's no real places to make moves because of how tight it is. But I think every corner at one point we had a move happen. So really good race. Enjoy this track a lot, and hopefully we see a lot more of it on the iRacing calendars for all the different series.
Yeah, definitely, because it had, it has its fair share of passing zones, and some places where some of the drivers had to make a passing zone. But regardless, it was a fantastic race. We saw some great battles. Most of them ended in tears, but still, it made for a fantastic GT track.
Yeah, it certainly did, and I believe we do have Ed and Carter in the interview waiting room.
Yeah, let's talk to the driver of the Pro-Am winning car, Aiden Carter. First of all, you take your title defense in the AM category and bring it up with a win. Congratulations. Let's talk about your race.
Hi, guys. Yeah, thanks for that one. Yeah, that was stressful, to say the least. Yeah, it was an interesting race. I think, obviously, the track is not a particularly popular one, and with myself as well, it's a difficult track to manage. So trying to manage the tyre temperatures and many Mustangs around me was a difficult one, but it was good fun.
Now, my question is, was this a Mustang-friendly track? Because we saw so many of them at the front, and I know that your hands were a little tied with trying to keep them at bay.
I would say, yeah. I'd say a lot of tracks at the moment are Mustang favored. I think the Mustang is just such a good all-round car at the moment. It's got so many positive qualities and not really any negative ones. So it's going to be fast really wherever we go. I think until potentially the iRacing update in a few weeks' time, it may shift. But at the moment, at least, there's not really a track where I don't think the Mustang's going to be competitive.
One of the storylines that we've been following is your jump from the AM to the Pro-Am class. You're staying in the same car, but what has been the biggest adjustment moving up in class this season?
I think the biggest adjustment has definitely been out and out raw speed. I think last season my season was kind of won on the fact that I had good race speed and racecraft, but my qualifying speed wasn't necessarily that strong last season. This season that's being tested a lot more, so actual good qualifying is far more important in the Pro-Ams this year than it was for the AMs last season, and just maintaining that high pace throughout an entire race is really, really difficult to try and match the other Pro-Ams around you.
And last but not least, next week, Silverstone Twin 45-minute races. What are you looking forward to the most there?
Love Silverstone as a track, brilliant track to race. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun race. I'd say in characteristic, it's kind of similar to the Bend in many circumstances with a lot of long and fast corners. So it should be hopefully another decent one for the Lamborghini.
Well, congratulations, and hopefully you can build upon this because that was a fantastic race you ran.
Thank you very much.
That was Aiden Carter, your Pro-Am winner, but the driver we were giving roses to all race long, 8th place overall, an AM win. It's Daniel McCauley. Nathan, I know that he's really excited.
Yes, indeed. Dan, welcome. Can you hear us?
Yeah, all good.
Perfect. I mean, you looked quite excited after that one. A long, stressful race that was, 60 minutes. Always up into that top 10. I mean, at the start, you had a great battle with Franek Sikorsky. Just talk us through those first couple of laps. What was going through your mind? Because everything was just all over the place, wasn't it, at the beginning?
That was absolutely crazy. Obviously, I started up near my teammate at the front, and he had a bit of an accident. We weren't sure what quite happened there. And then cold tyres on a warmer track was a bit sketchy, so I thought I could try and use that to get past Franek as quick as I could. he put one of the best defences I've ever seen on. So the two of us fighting on cold tyres was pretty sketchy. So I thought I'd give it a couple of laps to cool down, get ourselves in the rhythm, and try again. But he put an awesome defence on. I think we've seen that with the way the pros were trying to come through, and he wasn't giving them an inch, which he was totally inclined to do. It was fantastic. Definitely one of the best battles I've had.
Yeah, indeed. It was a really fun one to watch, at least from our end as well. And of course, we don't expect to see AM drivers finishing in the top 7. Never mind the top 15, top 20. So, I mean, is this track special to you? Is it just something you've got pace around, or was it just everything fell in place for you today?
I think it was a bit of a mix. I've never driven the bend up until 3 days ago, and when I realised how difficult it was, it's probably been one of the races I've put the most practice in for. Being a bank holiday in the UK today as well allowed me to just spend hours and hours and hours doing laps, and it really paid off. I had been practicing in a much higher temperature, so that's why the second race felt so much more comfortable to me. I'm not sure if everyone else has been practicing a bit cooler, but I think I managed to I think I kept the tyres in check a lot better than the others, and it was a little bit artificial that I was up there, because I definitely didn't have the outright pace. But if you told me at the start of last season even that I would be a couple of seasons away from finishing in the top 10, I would have bitten your hand off. So yeah, totally over the moon with that one.
Definitely. And of course, next time out we head off to Silverstone, of course, I presume a home race for you. How are your thoughts on that one? Because it's a very popular track, everybody drives it, so it's something everybody knows like the back of their hand.
I love Silverstone. It was one of my best circuits last year. I think I was very close to getting 2 AM wins there last year, so I'm hoping I can carry it on. This season's just so competitive. Like qualifying there, every single lap someone went a tenth faster, and it was always someone else. So I think the top of AM this season is going to be much closer than it was last season, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Indeed. Well, Dan, thanks for jumping in for a quick chat with us. Great to have you in here, and hopefully we'll see more of you over the course of the season. We'll give you some luck for the next race out in Silverstone. Have a good one, mate.
Cheers, guys. Catch you later.
Oh, congratulations to all of our winners. Next week, Nathan, we go to Silverstone, and it's the Grand Prix circuit.
We do. Well, I'm not going to be here because I think Jake Sparrow is jumping in the commentary box, but I will be watching because the first 4 races / 2 events have been insane. And Silverstone, you know, it's my home track. I love it. Everyone loves Silverstone, so I'm definitely going to be tuning in for the action there. I think we're going to have another insane couple of races because this track, even if you can't overtake there in certain corners, drivers still go for it. I think, why not? Let's go for a move into Maggots and Beckett's, no matter what.
Now, I'm excited. I'll move over for the newlywed and let him call the lead, because let me put it to you this way. If you think it was fun when I was calling it, Jake calling this calamity and craziness is going to be even more fun. What a fantastic couple of races we've seen. And, of course, the championship rolls on. Everybody putting their cars and stuff into their transporters, getting them set for the flight over to the UK. But nonetheless, these first 2 race weekends have really shown that it could be anybody's race here in the World GT Championship, unless you're up at the front and you're James Boomey or Alexander Davidson. But regardless, the Pro-Am and the Am classes have a lot to fight for, as we've seen different race winners each and every race. For Nathan Richards and Hugo Luis Calma making it sound oh so good, and of course Dougie Beard with the camera work, my name is Jeremy Scott. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week as the World GT Championship rolls on to Silverstone here on RaceSpotTV.